Good afternoon. We have arrived after a long and winding journey with lots of work sessions at our markup work session today, this afternoon. So colleagues, what I propose that we do, I've tried to share a sort of a process with you. There's one in particular addition. The way this process works is this will be a work session. What we need to deliver to the Department of Management and Finance by the end of the day is a majority supported way forward that they can then cost and evaluate in detail so that every last piece is assessed for the relative budget cost and the other pieces. So
That's me.
thank you, Mr. Carantonis. Thank you, colleagues. What we will do is we will start by trying to we'll go through, and the way we're planning on working this is, I believe Mr. Weinshank is going to share his screen, and DMF is right there with him. And it is a revised mark that there were some tiny tweaks that were one perhaps substantive, others not, that was posted this morning that tracked quite closely to the one that was posted last night. We will then, next Wednesday, we will have our final vote on this, but today we will seek to get to an agreed upon scorable set of line items that we would move forward for our budget. We will not today be taking individual separate motions, but instead we will be working to come to a proposal that we have alignment on. And we will have some issues that will be surfaced. So we'll go through, if Mr. Weinshank, you can bring up the chair's mark, we will go through this, and there's all the monitors have this. We'll go through this line by line. The first pass, I suggest we try to go through and see if there are any individual concerns. I don't have a scientific way of figuring this out, but the goal is going to be to get the big picture. After that first set we'll pull out a number of line items that we will consider later. After that first step, Ms. Cunningham has some buckets of 2 or 3 pieces that she would like to review of sort of alternative proposals or initiatives that she wants to speak to. We will hear those, and then we will go back in that second round, and we'll consider those and go back in that second round to going through items. To be concrete about it, probably we will turn to the sheriff's compensation first in that second round because it is a relatively big ticket item. And then we will go through each of those items trying to be as efficient as possible. That's enough of a prelude for me. And we will go now to working through the items. So on items, unless there are any burning questions, I see no lights, so we'll get started. Line 14 is the Metro WMATA revision from March 27th, and that is something that we've asked Mr. Freeze about a couple of times. I feel like there's broad alignment agreement on that. Line 15, to explain it to our public, is a reduction in buyout costs because we anticipate, and DMF, please correct me if I'm incorrect on any of this, we anticipate that we will be making fewer job cuts or, than in the manager's proposed budget. And as a result, the buyout costs for those, we give severance where we have a parting with an employee, the buyout costs will typically, will be less. And that's the $300,000 in one time that is in row 15, excuse me. The line 20 is the tax rate adjustment. I'll just name that we will come back to that issue. I think it's one of the areas that we should have ongoing. But currently in the piece, you can see line 20 and 21, it assumes a 0.0050 increase, which is we advertised 2 cents. The manager's proposal was 1.5 cents. And what the chair's mark resides at an additional ½ cent that we would need to fund what and I think others see as important priorities. We'll have additional conversation on that. So we'll move to line 23, which is revenue before for the county board, and then if you go from 23 through line 28, line 26 specifies the amount that we share under the revenue agreement, and so this half-cent, the proposal is to share that revenue. I believe the revenue share rate is around 46% or so, and so the proposal is to share that. And so we'll continue on to the stabilization reserve, which is the far right describes that we propose to not in this budget proposal delve deeply beyond what the county manager has already shared into the stabilization reserve. Colleagues will recall that was $11.5 million last year, and there's a number of, in your third quarter memo, I think you described a number of steps we would take. So the next item there is line 31, which is the clerk of court mentioned a position that the manager indicated in a perfect world would have been in the proposed budget. It's funded primarily by the state, but as we supplement many positions, this also needs to be supplemented in order to pay the way we believe in Arlington is necessary for cost of living. Line 32, I would propose that is the first line that I would propose that we pull out and have a subsequent additional detailed discussion, because I believe there are several board members who have questions on that. The current proposal is, if you look at it just for awareness, is to only start that position halfway through the fiscal year, which I believe would be January 1st. And, but we do want it, the proposal, at least I have, and we'll discuss more, is that the full cost be in next year's proposed budget without changes from the board, because we don't want to set ourselves up with an ongoing fiscal cliff or fiscal challenge that we would face. Line 33 is the Commonwealth's attorneys. We've had a number of organizations, as well as the Commonwealth's attorney, ask for funding for restorative justice. And so this funding would go to the Commonwealth's attorney for implementing of a restorative justice focused initiative. And at this point, this is one where I think there could be some discussion, but I don't think we need to hold out this one for future. I don't know if colleagues would wish to speak to it. I think Ms. Cunningham, go ahead.
Yeah, I think this is, we've had a lot of conversation across the work sessions about investing at the front end to avoid costs at the back end. And we talked a lot with all of our courts and public safety folks about diversion programs. So I'm fully supportive of the concept and kind of moving towards an ongoing program there. I would just like to flag that I think we heard in the work session that the procurement of the current vendor remains a sole source, and I would prefer that we, as we move towards ongoing, that we also move towards a plan, at least, to get that to be recompeted at some regular interval as purchasing recommends, whether that's every 5 or 10 years. And then separately, I know we're working on the MOUs with our constitutionals to make sure that we all understand what we're doing for each other and what the rules are. So I would just highlight that I'd expect that to get done this year, and would not feel comfortable moving to ongoing if that weren't the case.
Got it. That's helpful. And Mr. Spain.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would say that I believe the $150,000 in ongoing here is well below the ask that has come to us for several years, and I believe at the 5-year mark, since the restorative justice program in and of itself kind of originated here at the county, and what the Commonwealth Attorney has been able to do and accomplish very broadly this is a small scale investment, but it commits us to this potential aspect of restorative justice in which I believe needs to grow even more so. So I fully support the ongoing of 150. I believe what Board Member Cunningham is saying more closely as we think about how do we, monitor these contracts, these sole source contracts, not just within the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, but I will say throughout the entire county, is something we need to look at more closely. We don't, in many ways go to other departments and really scrutinize their contracts. So they're vetted, they're looked at through purchasing and procurement. But I think this is, the ask was $250,000 to be quite honest at the beginning, and I think this is a step in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spain. Mr. Karantonis.
Very short to what my colleagues have said. I would definitely welcome some language and guidance to specify how we want to, baseline and benchmark the appropriation here. The reason that's well positioned in ongoing is because we want to clearly position ourselves that this is intended to be a sustained effort over the next years. We're starting at a relatively low point. I mean, well below the ask. So in exchange, we do that as an ongoing, but of course, the Commonwealth Attorney's Office will have to show us how the program performs, where it's its baseline, where it's its benchmarks, what the outcomes are. Now, the Commonwealth Attorney was very clear about really wanting to deliver the data, so I think that we will be well served there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Karantonis. Vice Chair Coffey.
Yeah, and I think I'll just align myself mostly with Mr. Karantonis. I think as we continue to expand our investment in these types of diversion and restorative programs, which I believe is a value of this board and this county, I do also think we need to be thoughtful and intentional about what we expect from those investments. I don't know that we have the time or ability to figure that out during a budget, but I think it is a important policy area for us to not only speak of during budget as we decide where dollars go. We're doing a lot in a lot of different places and a lot of people doing a lot of different things. And I think having a coherent picture of all the players, all the investments, and all of the outcomes will help us inform better budget decisions in the future. But I think at least for specifically fiscal 27, this is a reasonable investment, and I support it being an ongoing because I don't think we're planning to walk this back. So I think this is a longer term commitment.
Thank you, Vice Chair Coffey. Keeping in mind everyone's shared comments, and mindful that I do think the Commonwealth's Attorney would want to share data. I don't know that, we would have work to do to accomplish the goals that Ms. Cunningham, you articulated. I think it is critical and was very important to me personally that we have ongoing. And so what I would suggest is that we keep this line in and that we commit to working on guidance that would be worked on not just exclusively with the county board, but with the Commonwealth Attorney's input and meaningful input as well, so we try to succeed in this area. So we will count that as mindful. It's not all that was wished for, but certainly ongoing is a critical piece, and the 150 is important, so we'll count that as resolved to this point. The next Commonwealth's Attorney ask was an upgrade that wasn't in the manager's budget already. It was the upgrade of the paralegal to paralegal supervisor. Are there any comments on that? I'm not seeing lights at the moment. That will stay in as something that we have reached relative alignment and agreement on. The food security mini grants, several others of you came to me and said that should be ongoing because we have funded it 2 or 3 years in a row. Not seeing any concerns on that. Oh, Mr. Karantonis and then Mr. Cunningham.
Just
Ms. Cunningham.
intervening in support of that, I have to say, Mr. Chair, that I was myself not very clear a couple of years ago how impactful the program would be, and I've seen how impactful it actually is. Way beyond what I thought. We are going through a situation right now with our most vulnerable populations of extreme food insecurity, and what we find is that our traditional or the setup means and channels of delivery are needing always supplemental ways, and this is one of these.
Thank you, Mr. Carantonis. Ms. Cunningham.
I just want to highlight that it's great that we're moving it to ongoing, because I think that is what we intend. However, we haven't moved that number, and anyone who's been to a grocery store lately knows that the food costs are going up, as well as we know that our need is going up. So I would suggest that we introduce a COLA or some sort of pattern that enables that to grow, consistent with inflation.
Sure, thank you, Ms. Cunningham. I'll let all members, I'll go to Ms. Coffey, Vice Chair Coffey, and then Mr. Spain.
Yeah, I was happy to bring this up during our conversations. Super support it. I think it is an ongoing priority, and therefore it should be funded with ongoing dollars.
Thank you, Vice Chair Coffey. Mr. Spain.
Yep, fully supportive. I think to what Ms. Cunningham stated, the costs, however, or the increasing costs of food, quite honestly, is just out of this world. But I also believe this is a singular, but it talks to there's a larger issue as we work in with food insecurity and using our stakeholders within DHS and other programming, because $150,000, even though it's small here, there's a lot of folks out here that needs to be served through these grants. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spain. So the question, it seems to me from colleagues' comments, is on the COLA adjustment, and as a general matter, indexing programs like this to some appropriate measure of inflation and food price escalation seems wise to me, but I'm in a place where I feel like that is a body of work that I don't know, I would want to apply it just to food mini grants and not apply it to other areas, and I think that that's an area where I would love our DMF super nerds, super great people to help us think through in a bigger way, but I don't know, I'm sort of trying to assess, what we should do. I would posit if we could leave this item in and then come back to the overall indexing question, Ms. Cunningham, but I am not dogmatic. If we need to take this offline to come back to, we can. It's up to, it's sort of partially, of course, your call as all colleagues' calls. Is there, Mr. Carantonis, that's sigil, or do you have thoughts on this?
Yes, on this, we have thought many times about the fact that some of our best delivering social safety net programs suffer under loss of acquisition power, right?
Yep.
Because of inflation, et cetera. One of the huge challenges here is that COLA is not a fixed thing, especially for the most vulnerable parts, the things like food, et cetera. We have wildly oscillating types of loss of acquisition power. So I think we are at this point, without having studied that across the board and without understanding exactly what the financial, introducing automatisms like that is not thought through at this point. I think that the board is nimble enough to react when we see that the program is, compromised in its delivery if it's not enough money there, and we have always supplemented that. That said, this is a good
Sure.
piece for policy thought, but we really need to do the work for that.
So certainly, if you have additional thoughts, I guess what I'd suggest is, I don't think any board member would have objection to naming now for Ears of God /REL that we do guidance language on this in this area. Does that meet the concern?
Yep, I think that's fine. I think we have experiences in other parts of our safety net where we didn't look regularly at the costs, and then it's a really big catch-up later. So I think we should really, across all of our programs, think about that each year.
Great. We'll do guidance. We'll leave this line item in. The next line item is, thank you, colleagues. The next item is restore the wood shop. We got many people came in to describe how personally important wood shop was to them. It was quite moving. And what we have suggested here is many asked us increase our fees, and so we will be increasing fees. That's the proposal. I don't believe that there's, not seeing any lights, there's no objection. We'll leave that item in. The next item, there may be discussion. It's the Cherrydale Library. And we have decided not to, with due respect to the manager, not to take the full cut of and to keep Cherrydale Library open. There is a position that was in the manager's proposal that was for an outreach librarian. In the interest of cost and mindful of the various challenges that we have, I have recommended not including that position, but there may be discussion on this one. Are colleagues all aligned? Okay, Ms. Cunningham, go ahead.
So I just have a question about that one. Do the hours for Cherrydale Library change as a result of that offset? It
Mr.
seems
Schwartz, to you.
likely.
Or Ms. Cowan?
No, not for the offset. The outreach librarian is supposed to be out in the community in places where there aren't libraries, so that would not impact Cherrydale. Because the offset was the outreach librarian ad.
But the current operating budget, if I remember from the budget response, was more like 450. Am I wrong? So
We can
it
come
seems
back,
like it would be a different level of service if we're removing a
No,
staff member.
because we're taking the offset of the outreach librarian.
Yeah.
I don't have
Ms.
the
Hughes.
numbers right in front of me. I believe that was correct, but this is reduced by taking away that outreach librarian that was in the proposed budget.
So let me see if I can ask an associated question. I thought at one point, someone had said that there was of the positions at Cherrydale, there was a vacant position. Under the proposal that is up there right now, we would fill the vacant position, but we would not do an outreach librarian. Does that meet your concerns?
Maybe just the question is, for fiscal year 26 or 25, what's the budget for Cherrydale Library? Is it closer to that number, 300?
No, it's more than that.
It's basically this line is combining two simultaneous changes because it is the restoration of the Cherrydale Library and the elimination of the proposed outreach librarian.
Yeah, because that was in my base budget, so.
Right,
yeah.
simultaneously in one line. So it is the net of those two changes is included in the spreadsheet.
Okay, so just confirming there's no change to hours or to service levels at Cherrydale. Perfect.
I think it is a fully reasonable, go ahead, Mr. Karantonis.
So the cost is more or less the net plus the outreach librarian, which brings it up to $470,000, something like that. That would be the gross. So I just want to say one thing, and that's a remark on everything. I really appreciate staff's and library systems systemic thinking about the system, about the library system, about how it delivers, who it serves, how it serves, etc. I think they gave me a lot to think about. And I'm very honest about that. I'm not done thinking about that. I support the status quo here, but this doesn't end the conversation. This is a system that has to cover the entire territory and a lot of different needs and a lot of different places. So I know that when the county manager proposed that, this was basically to change the model of delivery of libraries, not to actually reduce library service. So this needs to be said, and I will. And I think that we should think also in our guidance how we capture the spirit and we reward further thinking on that, because this is part of how we keep our system. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Karantonis. I would just note so that we are humane and notice the individuals participating. Great appreciation to Diane Kresh, who I just saw is going to get another award here shortly. And then also to Ron Bookbinder, who it just seems like his last name, it's appropriate that he spoke in behalf of the Cherrydale Library and spoke well. So next, we will leave that one in there. The next is PPTRA Scenario 6, and then sharing with Arlington Public Schools. I'll just speak to that broadly. This is additional car tax relief that the county has been providing beyond what is required by state law. We are a community that has tried to steer people and provide transportation options that are not driving alone. And so we are making a decently significant change that will lead to quite a bit of tax revenue. This is a tax expenditure that we had been providing to cars worth $3,000 previously, I believe, and now we would change it to $4,000. But we are also making a change so that we are capturing more of the value of cars And that is something that I think we have tried to all work through together, and we are supportive of reducing this tax expenditure. Particularly, we're providing some tax relief up to $20,000 as allowed by state code, but we are reducing that relative tax, and we're also acknowledging that cars worth quite a lot, even if they are environmentally friendly, are still valuable, and we want to encourage, reach the revenues that we believe are critical to move forward in a way that is equitable as far as we can see. So the history on line 39 is that we have shared revenue in the past with Arlington Public Schools, so we're doing that again in this case. Line 40, inflationary cost increases, including utilities, is, I think the description speaks for itself. Lines 40 and 41 and 42, we come to a place where I would also like to highlight and come back to. I think we're going to need some detailed conversations. I would like to note, should DMF be able to scramble and sort of work on this, and should colleagues be aware, I think what I sought to do in the draft mark that is there is more or less take the direction of the suggestions that Ms. Cunningham had and put them into those two lines. And she has since, I believe, come up with a slightly different proposal, I think focusing on competitive gymnastics. So it would be helpful if somebody wise could prepare us for when we come back to this subject so that we can have the most organized conversation possible. And certainly, yes, Ms. Cunningham.
Yeah, I think there's an amendment line in the file that I sent. So it's essentially, there would be an option. I think ultimately we expect our competitive programs to be closer to 100% cost recovery. So there would be an option to go to 200% in the second year, and then you'd have some one-time savings, one-time versus ongoing.
To 100%, not 200%, yes. Okay.
I was going to clarify.
Although that would
as
definitely
well.
help. No,
I do
just
think-
joking. Yes, thank you for clarifying.
Sure, no problem. I do think it's important for me to say clearly that we received so much powerful testimony on this. And in that testimony, we heard again and again, keep this gym open. And from many, many people we heard, ask us to pay more in fees. We are going to be asking more in fees. I'm confident that not all of those fees will be easy, but we are trying to manage a lot of different challenges to our revenue and our expenditures this year. We're trying to be good stewards of public resources. And so on Wednesday, we will move forward with a resolution on these particular fees with respect to gymnastics. I just want to be transparent. This is not all going to be easy, and that's on the fee side. And then there is a whole separate side, which we will be working with our staff to develop guidance for how to approach investing here. I think I can lastly confidently say, based on the proposal and what we will consider, that we're engaged for a minimum of 2 years, 2 fiscal years, to try and see what can be done and work with the community and our staff to help this continue in a thriving way. And that, I hope, is some solace for those who are worried about this is a 2-year proposal, a 2-year plan. We're leaning in. We'll have guidance. But I think it's important to say those things out loud because based on how organized the gymnastics community is, I think there are more than a few people, for once, who may be watching online over the next 24 hours. Mr. Spain.
Yes, Mr. Chair and everyone, thanks for those comments. And, we're going to come back and talk about gymnastics. I would just say, to a comment you just stated, not only working with staff, but also working with the community, over the next 2 years, I'm very cognizant of how we arrived here. I would just hope that in the next, 18 to 24 months that we are doing our due diligence, because there are some great ideas that, especially on the competitive gymnastics side, that folks have brought up. And I think we need to be able to really sit at the table today and work out some of these issues, okay? Because if not, I think we'll find ourselves right back here again in 2 years.
Thank you, Mr. Spain. We will come back to this in addition, but I really do appreciate your comments. We'll come back to this one. ACSO is the county sheriff's office compensation. I propose that we also highlight that one and come back to that one. The next item is the Community Oversight Board Management Analyst. We're in a string here. I would suggest that we also come back to this one because I know we'll have a fulsome discussion on this particular item. The next one is a proposal to cut 0.025% from the Arlington County Police Department budget. That comes out to $250,000. We have had exchange, and the manager has engaged, so has several board members have engaged in a conversation about that. We have clearly accounted, I believe, some $144,000 and change in savings that we would anticipate that there's some level of agreement on. This adds a small bit of additional. Ms. Cunningham, I think you, but perhaps others, also had a suggestion that as our recruitment is succeeding based on our significant investment in the police department, we also consider our budget and perhaps small reductions leading to $250,000 in total, which would be another, I guess, $96,000 or $106,000 from videos. This item, I certainly will take comments if folks have them. I'm not seeing any lights. I'm not trying to pause too much to encourage lights, but I will. I see Vice Chair Coffey. Speak your truths, colleagues. Go ahead, Vice Chair Coffey.
Yeah, I guess just a question. I think we have one thing that we feel fairly confident about in terms of specific numbers. Do we need to specify exactly where the rest comes from, or can we just direct the manager to find a reasonable place to take that from?
I am certainly fine with your approach of find the best recommendation of the additional place for that to come from. The manager is nodding. If we had a disagreement as to the specifics of guidance language, I'm sure that Ariel could draft language that says, look at the manager's recommendations to include, if necessary, the videos. But we will leave it sufficiently vague that we will go on, and I will not look for defeat out of the jaws of victory. The next one is maintaining the Clarendon Alliance funding. I really have to appreciate colleagues for pointing out that we should move this to ongoing. I'm thinking back to the 3 or 4 things that we agreed that we would try to do. Being fiscally sustainable means not putting things in one time that really are ongoing. And so that's the Clarendon Alliance. The next item is AED Catalyst grants. I think this is one where I think I have a question actually for the manager on this one. If you could speak a little bit to the detail of the nature of catalyst grants and our economic development.
Okay. So you had asked a question during follow-up, and the way I would like to think about it is the $250,000 could be either for catalyst grants or for the innovation fund, and I'm happy to come back to you with more details on that because I don't think we've quite settled on it. They serve different purposes, and I think that we've had some success with both approaches. So if I can, I'd come back to you with more detail on that before we actually would do any of those expenditures. For both of them, they've been effective at attracting startups to the county, but in different ways. So I don't want the wording catalyst to limit us in the way we approach that.
Thank you. I think we'll have a couple of comments on this. As folks make comments, it's plausible that I could see Mr. Weinschenk asking you to include the phrase "or innovation grants" in the description. And it's also plausible that we could ask for language in the notes that provides sufficient flexibility for colleagues. I'm not saying that precludes us from needing to come back to this, but Ms. Cunningham, go ahead.
I appreciate the flexibility and the expansion of the concept here. I think that we should keep a small amount of money in this for, we're hopefully imminent in hiring a permanent director for AED, maybe not imminent, but soon, almost there, and having some pot of money budgeted so that that person can provide whatever innovation or investment they would like to. I'd like to not have it be invested until that person's here and has a second to.
I'm willing to agree to that. We'll come back to you when the imminent hiring is hired.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
I like the description.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Carantonis.
So on the catalyst grants, they have both, in both their iterations, they have a positive return on investment, very positive return on investment. And they have them on two levels. First of all, these startups, in average, they have produced jobs. They have been, producing more than we invested in them. That's number one. And number two, they created us a reputation of being worthy for extra external investment in the form of venture capital investment, et cetera. We are right now the only sub-region in the metropolitan region who has a positive increase in venture capital investment here. Typically, this is the winner or the awardees of these grants are typically eligible. They score very well with their investors. So this is I'm fine with keeping that as one time. There is nothing systemic there that I would be very concerned about, but it's a good program to have. I had my own concerns about that when this started because I didn't know, and now I know far better, and I see how it works.
Thank you, Mr. Karantonis. Based on all colleagues' comments yes, I didn't see. Mr. Spain, go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Manager. Board Member Takis Karantonis just stated that in the past this has produced jobs, right? And I think for me, without any clarity, it feels like you're going to make a determination on whether this goes into the innovation fund or we're going to, do this in some type of catalyst grants. Is that what I'm hearing? To be determined.
Well, picking up on what Ms. Cunningham said, I think that when the new AED director arrives, we can analyze the approach that he or she would like to take and come back to you for a blessing on that. So that's what we're going to do.
Okay. Yeah, and this is, I think we have it. Yeah. 250. I thought I'll pass for right now. I thought we were talking about another number maybe later. But
Another number later. From my part in the MARC, we did have different conversations as we were trying to pin this, but for my part in the MARC, I do come down at 250,000, but I guess, I'm happy to, if we feel strongly and we can pin this and come to a decision on 200 to 250 if we need to. Vice Chair Coffey, and then we'll keep working this through.
Yeah, I support maintaining the flexibility, and I look forward to our new AED director sometime hopefully soon.
Thank you. We will, let's put that in maybe orange or yellow, whatever you think is appropriate. And Ms. Cunningham, go ahead. Did you have concluded?
Yeah, I was just going to clarify. I think that the number there is somewhat arbitrary. It's kind of a placeholder to make sure that we remember to be kind to the new director, and then not to quibble. But I think on the past performance of the Catalyst grants, correlation and causation are not fully sorted out, and there were a lot of other venture capital dollars, and I hear enough about that at home. We'll leave it there.
Thank you. So we'll give you space to think this through. We'll flag this. We'll give you space to think it through.
Yeah, I'll just say for the record, Mr. Chair, being here 15 months, last year there was some money and that we had, and it came to me that yes, we want our AED director to be able to engage, but with businesses and things alike, but it was not clear to me at the time what that money was going to be used for. It came to me as walking around money for AED director, and that just, for me, without it being clear and concise of what it's going to be used for right now, just gives me a level of concern and pause, but we'll get to it. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Spain. We'll come back to that one, and there may be a lot of grounds for guidance that may be able to address some of the concerns that have been articulated. We'll see. Next item, line 48, is County Board Office. That's ranked choice voter education funding. I think we had good discussion on this that I wasn't always a part of. I hope that's not causal, but actually, I think it was just a case where this amount of money is anticipation of the elections next year, because that's when this fiscal year will run. that where we will have two candidates, and that would be different. So 70,000, I don't see any lights. We'll keep going. The next item is Department of Human Services Humanitarian Assistance, and I'd like to speak to this. The number that I've proposed is 350,000 to be divided in the following ways: about 200,000 through the Community Foundation to address some of the policy differences that we hold with this administration with respect to inclusion of families and inclusion of our immigrant community, but also in conjunction. The money that I'm proposing is 125,000 for LAJC, which is Legal Aid Justice Center, and which would do appropriate defense. We can further enumerate that in conversation. 75,000 to Just Neighbors, which does affirmatively efforts to keep our families intact that are here. Then that adds to 200,000 through the Community Foundation. Then there would be, I propose, an additional 50,000 to address one of our timely challenges, which is healthcare, that would go to the Arlington Free Clinic, another 50,000 that would go to offender aid and restoration, which is particularly challenged with respect to federal funding, and then 50,000 that would go through Thrive to address families that have been particularly addressed. That is a level of detail that perhaps not in all cases might I go into. I'm doing it in this case because we are in a moment where Arlington's humanitarian values need to be lived, and that's why I wanted to share these thoughts. Colleagues, not seeing any lights at this point, I will continue. That item will be fine. The next item is the DHS. Go ahead, Ms.
I'm
Cunningham.
sorry
Go
to
ahead.
disrupt the apple cart a little bit. I think on the question of health, we will talk about this later, but I would actually prefer that we deal with that altogether outside of the humanitarian. I think that
Sure.
healthcare is something that we need to focus on with DHS.
Sure. So the default there will be, we will flag that and put it in, highlight it to come back to. And Vice Chair Coffey, go ahead.
Yeah, I think there is something there in terms of work to be done in the next year to 18 months around, I think we've had a lot of conversations around mental health and what that looks like, and caring for our neighbors in many different ways, and the conversation around physical health and healthcare and health insurance, given the changes at the federal and state levels, will become imminently important. But I think creating a plan for what we do to rise to that moment is of interest to me, and I also do not have that plan today.
Thank you. That's Vice Chair Coffey. That's fine. Thank you, Ms. Cunningham, for naming it. We will leave it highlighted. What I will say is that it has been my grand intention, and I think it's all of our intention, to include in guidance language towards health equity. And I am on the hook for trying to come up with language that may be of assistance as we do so. It's just a reminder, we have a lot of work to do on guidance over the coming days. But suffice to say, Fairfax has facilities that are big, that are healthcare facilities. We have such investments, but at scale, I believe we can do additional pieces to work on health equity, and exactly how that works is something that we need to work with staff and our Department of Human Services to think through. So we will leave it highlighted. We'll come back to it. The Department of Human Services' next item is housing grants waitlist that starts October 1st, 2026. In yesterday's item, we slipped and said October 1st, 2027, but it is 2026. Our staff, Ms. Cowan, and our staff have assured us that the technical work should be finished by 2026, while Arlington Values and the manager's continued commitment to those most in need would say if there is an unforeseen item, the manager's contingency, I think, would be, without speaking for you, would be something that we would do. The only other thing that I will name that I also think is, Ms. Cowan suggested, is on course, but there will be work that will be necessary, is we got a letter from Caroline Jones, a number of advocacy organizations, talking to the work we need to do to continue to think through the housing grants program, and that would be staff and advocates in a collaborative relationship, perhaps not necessary to name it formally, but this is deeply important work, I think, to all of us, and we would ask that you the advocates stay in touch with us regarding that work. That is not to say that in the letter it detailed that there's an understanding that we need cost containment. We also need to make the program work as well as it possibly can. And so with that, I think that we're aligned on this item. Ms. Cunningham, go ahead.
I would just like to add to that I know that staff with the consulting team are working vigorously to try to get that up as quickly as possible, and I appreciate the commitment to making October 1 at the latest. I would just like to, probably for guidance, suggest that if that timeline does collapse through the great work that they're doing, that any overage or savings there go to AHIF so that we keep them in the housing bucket. And then secondly, to highlight that as liaison with Fiscal Advisory Affairs, they have also asked that we look more comprehensively at our housing programs and the return on investment over the next couple of years. So I think that aligns with what you were just referencing.
Sure. So what I'll ask, because in the conversations, I think all of us are deeply interested in, we face a challenge with AHIF and the pipeline, but all of us are very interested in this area. And so what I suggest is that maybe Ms. Cunningham and Ms. Coffey be resources for you as you're drafting this guidance. I don't know who should take the first crack at it. We will work appropriately on this together, but that's what I'd suggest. Vice Chair Coffey.
Yeah, I'm not normally one to seek credit, but I do think that was my idea.
My apologies for not giving you.
Nice.
And no, I think it's really important. I think for me, we all talk about affordable housing being a priority for us, and I do think that for me it is important as much money as we can put into our Affordable Housing Investment Fund and housing grants combined is where I would like to be ultimately. And if we can reduce one side of that and benefit the other side, that's fine by me, as long as it doesn't hurt the ability to do the work on the housing grant side.
Thank you, colleagues. We will do guidance. We will leave that as unhighlighted, so we will not be following up on it the rest of this conversation, but it will be for you two to work on with, since you grabbed the credit, you get to be at the center of the writing, if you're willing, Vice Chair Coffey. So the next item is Northern Virginia Regional Strategic Initiative funding. It's a small sum of money. I have engaged with this. Arlington has a long history of regionalism. We are going through, I am chair of the Regional Commission. We're going through a strategic planning effort to determine how to best be of value to Arlington as well as other member localities. There have been work sessions on housing, workforce, AI, and energy, and we will continue this work. It's a relatively small sum of money. I do think it's important that we budget out of contingency where we think we know there's a likelihood. There's not a certainty that this money will be used. There are other localities who have important strategic questions here as well. So that's my rationale. Ms. Cunningham.
Vestigial, I'll go.
Okay. If there's not trouble, I know you support regionalism, so Mr. Karantonis, I'll ask if you can give us grace and keep going, unless you have a burning comment. We will.
Sorry, then I thought someone else was going to cover this one. I think certainly we all do support regionalism, and we do that to a large degree in the base budget. I would prefer that this one be something that we bring up later. If it, once a strategic initiative is described, then we evaluate whether it meets our goals or not. So I would probably be for zeroing this one out in the budget.
Sure. Well, let's put this one highlighted. That's not the space I'm in. I do respect the views for sure. Let's come back to it. And we certainly can. Regional Opportunities Grants, I do think we have to have additional conversation on that one. So we will immediately highlight that one. The next one is Office of Public Defender, additional paralegal fellow for mitigation and investigation. This came out of a conversation in part between our public defender and Vice Chair Coffey. I have sought to gain clarification. I just do believe that in terms of reducing the number of bed nights in our jail, this is a resource that is well placed that will be very beneficial. Not seeing any lights, we will go on. That will be in. The next item also came out of a work session. This is increasing the Street Safety Initiative funding for Vision Zero. This is, we're now getting perhaps close to the territory of whether there is enough funding based on our big picture decisions in order to do this. But I do believe this is useful. There's such value in some of our quick build projects, and I think in conversation, perhaps at least as much value in some of our other programs that are associated. So, Ms. Cunningham, go ahead.
I would just tag this as, and I think we had some discussion during the work sessions, that this is a high priority for the whole board and for the whole community. It's very well managed, very well measured in terms of its quick return on investment. So generally supportive. However, as we get to the back half of this conversation, I am going to be in favor of more restraint than is shown here. And so I would only be supportive of that as a specific call out if we are able to access a few of the revenue options that are also associated with traffic safety.
Got it. So what I suggest is that we highlight this one, and once we have come to those big picture, it may be a relatively shorter conversation, but we'll see. So we'll highlight this one. The next, item 55 is CPHD changed. We propose instead of eliminating the comprehensive planner principal position, we freeze that position to indicate that we would like next year for this to be built into the base budget without action. Is there comments on that? I do not see, I know there is interest, and Mr. Karantonis, go ahead.
Just to say one thing, this is a principal planner that would be basically the center of competence for our one of our fastest growing corridors, and a corridor that we get to engage a lot with commercial to residential conversions, et cetera, which is Route 1, the Richmond Highway. So this is the home of a lot of Arlingtonians. Almost 55,000 Arlingtonians live there. So this is a position that has a lot of return on this investment. I'm fine to delay a little bit on this, but that doesn't rest or diminish. It doesn't diminish the importance of that. CPHD has been losing personnel over time, and that begins to bite when we need to approach things that are different in policy, like, for example, our conversion and the CMRI, and questions of how to negotiate with the community the adaptation or reinterpretation of sector plans that right now are not feasible as they have been written 20 years or 15 years ago. So this is an important position for that.
Thank you, Mr. Karantonis. What I'd suggest, colleagues, I said it, and just to reflect a little bit better, Mr. Weinshank, if you could add into the notes section that what I believe is the logical implication of this, which is the board's intent here, and speak if you have objection for sure, is that this position would be built in the base budget for the fiscal year that follows the one to come, and it will be frozen at this stage. That is, with that, I do not see further objection. We will not highlight that. The next item is line 56. Transfer IPA budget and FTEs from CMO to CBO. I think we agree on that. We'll keep going. The next item. Yes, sorry.
Other than to say, woo.
Okay, that is, woo, unbridled enthusiasm on any line is fully allowed, and in fact encouraged, because we are punchy and we're a little budget exhausted. So that is item 56. Item 57, reduce HRD budget, and this is, I think, an FTE count by 0.7 to move bargaining FTE and budget to the CMO. I think that our labor negotiator, Ms. Naylor, described this, Mr. Schwartz. I don't think there's a disagreement. 57 will leave the same. Line 58, I think, is worth naming, because I'm not sure that it is widely public. This is, I might go to the manager for a little description, or Ms. Cowan, but essentially it is, this is the board's, the board has thought this through and believes it's the right policy, but it would require that our firefighters have the same health plans as others that include deductibles. So my understanding is that all other employees of the county have deductibles at a certain level, and this is making consistent.
So,
go ahead.
Yeah, just so I can state sort of what the issue here is, that under the collective bargaining agreement, any changes that I would want to make to healthcare benefits I'm overstating it a little bit. I had to make 90 days before I proposed my budget. I wasn't able to put any proposals in the budget. Conversations with the board, you expressed an interest in exploring since the members of the fire union will be the only ones in the county who are not paying deductibles on healthcare, whether you wanted to apply the rule which applies across the entire workforce, including all of our other collective bargaining units, to those people who are in the fire department. To do so, that would require the board to act. And to do that, and it's not reflected here, that actually would actually net some revenue to the county of about $64,000, and that's not shown on the spreadsheet. So that is something you might want to think about.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. I think that Ms. Hughes may have some additional, but this is one that if there is,
Oh, there's too many claims. I take back what I said. Thank you. Tupac out.
Yeah, I think in the discussion, and I appreciate the education about it, that it is overall a kind of, there's some cost savings in there, but it's spread across the whole insurance pool. But I think just more broadly for guidance and for board input to the bargaining process, because the bargaining agreements come up at different times and the healthcare policy changes come up at yet different times, we'd like to have some clause in the bargaining agreements that allows us to keep everyone on the same plan so that we don't drive the team crazy.
Yes, thank you very much. I support your supporting that support.
thank you, Ms. Cunningham and Ms. Hughes and Mr. Schwartz for, but I do think it's important to name this because it will be, there will be some of those who could save our lives at any moment, our firefighters, who will notice this. I would ask for, respectfully, I'd ask for balanced consideration of this change with the investment that we're doing in the fire department as a whole, while mindful that that may not be enough in every instance, but I leave it there. We will work particularly on, so that one we'll accept as well. The next item is line 59, which is, I do think we should highlight as well. There is some discussion as to whether the IPA management analyst position or the IPA deputy director, how we fund that, how we move. I would note that this is an effort. This is, you could argue that this is a fiscal commitment. By freezing, it's a statement. It would be a statement about future commitment to invest that would be a year and 3 months from where we are now, and we are not in easy fiscal times. So I acknowledge that. Line 60 came up in the course of the discussion with our registrar, and the manager said we regularly would cover additional elections funding necessary, and we don't know that precise amount. There's some hope that Richmond may be constructive, and so we don't know the precise amount of that dollars. Line 64, I will...
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just
Sorry, go
for
ahead,
the
Mr. Spain.
record, can we get some level from the county manager on line number 60, an idea ballpark of what you think that number may be?
So when Ms. Reinmeyer was here, she talked about the number of elections that were happening. She had an estimate based on some variables that we don't know exactly what they're going to be. I think the number she threw out might have been as high as 300,000, like 300.
215.
Yeah. And so in the past, what has happened, because even though the board adopts a budget, there will sometimes be unforeseen circumstances where additional elections occur. What has happened, that's either been paid for out of the county manager contingent, or the board also has allocated that $8.4 million available for future considerations. So it's my assumption that that number will be somewhere between 200,000 and 300,000, but there isn't a precise number at the moment.
Yeah, and the state, in its essence, probably has not been paying their fair share as well to these localities. And we've been taking up the burden of these costs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spain. Appreciate that, and appreciate your clarifying, and that really helps as folks are looking at it. Line 64 is that we would try to do the balance of what is left in one-time and ongoing for AHIF. I think it's been broadly agreed upon in different contexts. I would leave it and keep moving. And line 77, just for clarity, the way I balanced the budget, we did not have enough money in one time, so I propose using some of our ongoing funding for one-time costs. Vice Chair Coffey.
So I guess, is the AHIF being an ongoing an intentional choice. I think I was thinking of the AHIF additional unallocated revenue being a one-time commitment, though I agree that we need vastly more ongoing for AHIF. I did not think that was the intention for fiscal 27.
You assume that I have clarity of ongoing, of purpose there. I did think of it, but I didn't complete the thought. I do believe we need to increase our ongoing for AHIF, and so that would be my position to leave it there, but I am not dying on any hill that says it should be one time instead. So go ahead, and then we'll come to you.
Sure. I think, am I reading this correctly? Which side do we have more in at this moment, Graham, or anyone
Mr.
from
Weinstein.
DMF? We have more. Okay.
You could switch that to be a one-time expense and then pay for it using the ongoing.
I would recommend that.
Got it. So why don't we do this? Let's get clear on what is left before we start making decisions on this. Let's highlight this line, line 64, and then let's highlight line 77. And that will persuade us that we have much work left to do this afternoon. We have now gone through the big picture, and
Mr. Chair, if
go
I
ahead,
may,
Ms. Cunningham.
On the question of the unallocated revenue to AHIF, I think, we are all struggling with the need to make a significant investment in AHIF if we decide that's the way we were going to continue to make our housing investments. This is a very, very small drop in the bucket. And I think that we can have further discussion about it, but I personally would prefer that we just stick it up in the reserve for the balance of the year, and then as we get deeper into knowing whether the federal government will be sustaining housing choice vouchers, we can begin to move those over into AHIF if we don't need that revenue.
So that will be
Thank you for
the stabilization.
It'd be in stabilization for the moment, but knowing that if we have stabilization left at the end, we're likely to move much of it over to AHIF once we get through this chapter of our republic.
Yes, so thank you for surfacing that. We'll have more discussion. I think I'm not dogmatic on the one time. I lean towards AHIF. I hear you on the stabilization overall and the uncertainty that we face. So we will keep that as highlighted. So now, the next stage that I propose that we go to is to Ms. Cunningham for some buckets of big picture concerns and areas that you wish to raise. And we, just so that folks don't, the 17 people who are watching we don't have all of this perfectly scripted. And so we'll work this through together as you wish, but I'll share it with you and you help lead us through the buckets that you're interested in, and we have discretion as to the specific amendments that are indicative of those buckets that you recommend that you would like to work through. Ms. Cunningham.
Great. I think we have an alternate set of amendments, and there's like a formatted tab, Mr. Wenchuk.
And Mr. Chair, there's actually 87 people watching right now.
Okay, you know your stuff. It's good
And
stuff.
one of them could be a room with 1,000, you never know.
Yeah, that's
on the
true.
big
And then,
There's a watch party somewhere.
That's right.
is that really true? Please.
Mr. Weincheck, there should be a version in there that's the formatted tab. No, I think you have the wrong. Let me share it with you. Hold on.
That's a sort of a PR strategy that Mr. Carantonis has to have his picture that goes up in all contexts.
It is some kind of challenge to have to turn around and
Yes.
look up.
Yes.
You can do it over there too. Okay,
We have a question, yeah?
I just shared it again. Did it come through? No? I can Teams it to you also. It might be faster. Does anybody have any dad jokes while we're waiting? There we go. Okay, you might need to make it bigger. I don't know that we need all the notes to be able to follow the bouncing ball. Okay, so none of this is new, but I do want to kind of, before we go through the details of fighting about each dollar, get back to how big is the breadbasket. So I think I would just re-center us on the fact that the manager's proposed budget begrudgingly included a 1.5 cent real estate tax increase with the intent of meeting a significant one-time investment in public safety needs, both due to challenges getting our multiple public safety divisions fully staffed and the multiple year overtime expenditures that is creating for taxpayers, as well as the egregious overtime it is creating for families and for our workforce. So I am still in support of that. I think as we've gone through all the work sessions, we have identified places where we have slightly difference of opinions, as always, on the budget itself. And as you know, I've been looking closely all the way through to find opportunities to not just keep cutting services and raising taxes, but to identify areas where we can either have efficiencies or create new revenue streams. And so I was thrilled that we were able to identify the PPTRA, the personal property tax relief, that weaning ourselves off the tax support for that, and that also benefits schools. That's terrific, and that's embedded, I think, in your mark. Beyond that, I strongly feel that there are opportunities that are less regressive than the real estate tax and would enable us to make progress against our expenditure items and set us up for future revenue growth while keeping a level playing field for the community. So I just want to walk through some of those for your benefit, and I think perhaps more for the community's benefit, because I believe I remain in a minority on the issue of the tax rate. So the first one is the parking fine increase. We have a parking fine of $40 right now, which has not changed since a decade ago, nearly a decade ago. And as our parking costs in parts of the county have increased, that has not really kept up as a deterrent. And as I was telling one of you earlier today, you can take the IRS out, you can take the girl out of the IRS, but you can't take the IRS out of the girl. The absolute cheapest way to generate revenue and sanity in this community is for there to be voluntary compliance on our laws. Right now, our parking payment compliance remains at 40%. This is the second year we've had a priority in our budget guidance to focus on enforcement and on revenues, and I feel strongly that that's a revenue source that's sitting there. It's a direct revenue in this coming year, and then it would be an indirect revenue, likely to the tune of $5 to $10 to $15 million over the coming years if we get the payment compliance where it should be. In addition, it has the benefit of, unlike real estate tax, if you don't want to pay it, you can just park properly, and that by parking properly, you're also supporting our economic development, you're supporting our pedestrian safety and climate goals. So that is the big one. The second one is around a newly identified, or a new opportunity given to us by the General Assembly, who we've lambasted throughout this process for not giving us revenue where we would like to have it. And so I would propose that we continue on our Vision Zero goals, on our traffic safety goals, on our safe routes to school goals, and using the equipment we have already installed, maximize the use of that equipment to ensure that we're continuing to bring speeds down around our school children. Assuming there's not instantaneous behavior change, though that would be fabulous. I would anticipate that this would have some ongoing revenue and some one-time revenue as behaviors begin to change. I built in a one FTE to ensure that the tickets can be reviewed properly and to manage the whole program. So that is what that one is. I think there'd be some limitations. We need to make sure that those dollars go towards traffic safety, but we spend a heck of a ton of traffic safety dollars, so I feel confident that we'll be able to work that out, though there is some brain damage to make sure that happens, so realizing that. Then the next three, actually the next four categories, I think, we've talked a lot about gymnastics, and we're going to talk a little bit more, so I won't belabor that. But I think that we have been cutting staff and cutting services in a number of places in order to get our budget to balance the last couple of years. DPR, our Parks and Rec, has experienced that perhaps most profoundly of all of our agencies. And I would put forward that it's time to be serious about the goals that we've set of 86% cost recovery for most programs, and then 100% cost recovery for those that are competitive. So what you see here is for aquatics, which is close but not there yet, the 100% closure for 55 plus programs, where we deeply, deeply subsidize anyone who's just a few years older than 4 of those folks up here, and to just soften that a little bit, and then for gymnastics, which we'll talk about later. So those are my offers for, I don't think we need to raise the tax rate. I think we can manage the public safety needs as the manager had proposed and meet other obligations through some additional revenue efforts. So I can stop in that category if you want to
Sure.
discuss by category.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham, for both speaking to a bucket of concerns and also going through individual items. I'll start with Vice Chair Coffey, and then we'll give colleagues all a chance, and I will also share thoughts on this as well.
Yeah, and I'll start by saying I'm not opposed to any individual line on here per se, but I do feel that they are entering the conversation too late in the game for this budget cycle. I don't believe the community has had time to think about or engage with us. And as we experience this budget cycle, there are a lot of people who have a lot of thoughts and feelings about particularly our fee and fine-based revenue. And more broadly, I think, especially on the parking and speed camera, I do not believe, for me, that those are sources of revenue that I would consider. They are part of an ongoing policy approach to parking management, to public safety, traffic safety, and I think we probably do need to have an overall conversation around how we manage and enforce those things, but I would like to decouple that from the budget. I think adding them in as a way to balance our budget makes it very apparent that it is more about the revenue we are gaining from these things than it is the behavioral change that we are trying to enforce. And I'm not comfortable with that, because to me, I think there is a much bigger conversation, especially around curbside management and public parking, about what it is we're trying to accomplish and how we're trying to accomplish it. I don't know that we are. I don't think we are doing a good job at parking enforcement at this time. But doing this way, particularly when we see, our neighbor, the city of Alexandria, who is raising their parking ticket fine from $40 to $50, they've had a long-term conversation. They've had advertisement. They've had public discussion. They've had community engagement opportunities to make sure that this doesn't come out of nowhere for people. And so I just think that there is a better way to do this. And then on the DPR fees and everything, again, I'm not saying that that's not where we end up in the future, but I just think that to do this at this stage without real notification to the individuals who participate in these programs is a little tough for me. I think gymnastics is the one caveat there, where because we've had such extensive conversations around the program, around cost recovery, around what that looks like, I think I have a willingness to go a little further than what is currently included in Matt's version that we just went through, which is why it's in part highlighted in the other spreadsheet. But I think the other ones, I would be supportive of including some of these items in guidance for us to come back and think about next year to kind of start including them as structural elements of our budget. But I am not comfortable at this time for this budget including them.
Thanks, Vice Chair Coffey. I want to make sure that you, Ms. Cunningham, I think it's best for everyone to talk and then for you to give their thoughts. Mr. Karantonis, I think your light was on, it might be off now. I'm not trying to force.
I think Ms. Coffey covered most of the basics on the fines, especially the parking fee and the speed camera. There is an additional wrinkle to that. The governor, if I understand it correctly, she just signed legislation that commits the revenue from speed cameras to be spent in a very specific way. It kicks in 27, but it has to be reinvested in Vision Zero and safety, etc. So this is not an unencumbered type of revenue, so I would be very careful to include that here. And also, I don't want to give anybody the wrong impression that we would, consider this kind of fees, like Ms. Coffey said, as, regular revenue or revenue that I would do through the budget process. That said, I think it's absolutely kosher to bring it up and have a policy discussion on this. On the 55 plus, what I'm missing here, I understand the idea of this, and I can and I know a lot of people. 55 plus is an extremely successful program, very beloved. I know a lot of members who would even voluntarily pay more for that right now, but I also know a lot of members who would struggle. So we need to have some analysis on this to understand better how these fees are distributed and what the equity parameters of that is. I wouldn't precipitate myself in this. On the gymnastics discussion, I align myself with Ms. Coffin, and I'm ready to discuss when we go back to the line how this can be modified.
Thank you.
And on aquatics, I think 100% cost recovery is, of course, a desired outcome at some point. At this point, we haven't studied how do we get there, and we need to. And this is a big community, and we have to give them the same treatment that we gave to the gymnastics community in discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Karantonis. Mr. Spain.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and colleagues, and thank you, Board Member Cunningham, for really taking the time out over the past couple of days to kind of walk me through aspects of this. I understand wholeheartedly what you're trying to get at, but I want to align a lot of my sentiment and thoughts with that of the Vice Chair for a number of reasons. Parking at the 1.6 of ongoing, I believe, though you may see some short-term return on investment on that, I don't see it as really something long-term. And we have not really done an analysis, in my opinion, nor have we, to the point the Vice Chair made, really communicated to the community this potential possibility. And with that, it gives me great pause. I think there's a point in time, maybe in the next budget cycle, that we can do a lot of this. Gymnastics, to what has already been stated, and the competitive nature is it something we're going to talk about. But I think what they're also expecting is that there are going to be significant increases there. So look, I think the spirit and intent behind what you put forward is great. But I also believe as a board, and I think you also have a lot of frustration, which I can appreciate as well, that we probably need to put forward in our guidance for next year more direct and intentional direction on what we should see in a proposed budget. And also at the same time, if we're going to take on the aspects of parking fines and fees, we need to start having these conversations now with the community. So that those are just my comments. I will be perhaps supportive in a lot of this at another time, but special parking fines, it just gives me grave pause right now. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Spain. For my part, colleagues have said concerns well. I do think the work I do appreciate. I would want to think through the details of a number of these items. I think in addition to there's a broad fairness which includes accountability for parking illegally and competitive sports, et cetera. But there's also the question of how that balances with regressive and progressive tax policy is one I would want to think about in greater detail, but that's not to say that they're not fair concerns. I guess before giving you additional time to sort of share thoughts, and we'll keep moving as we can, I guess from the comments that all board members have made, I would actually be inclined to see if on guidance we can go specific to each of these areas rather than just a generalized approach, so that we get a greater chance that we will see the follow-through. But that's my 2 cents add-on. Back to you, Ms. Cunningham.
Yeah, I think I would just add, I appreciate the desire to go to guidance and to kick the can down the road 1, 2, 3 more years. This is only my not quite third full year of being on the board, and each of the budget guidance, how do you even say that? The guidance documents that we have prepared and presented to the manager in the last budget cycles has included adoption of higher fees to offset general fund appropriations in 26 and 27, including fee increases to meet cost recovery and enhanced revenue collection. These items are exactly in line with that. Some of them have been studied. You know, the aquatics fees was in the study before gymnastics was, frankly. The speed cameras, every time we have talked about Vision Zero, we have talked about the desire to expand the hours. We just did not have that available to us, and now we do. And I think parking fines was a bit of an oversight that, you know, before we were perhaps bounded by the state, but we haven't been. But, you know, I understand this wasn't in the manager's proposed budget, but it is our job up here to, on behalf of the community, advocate for the most reasonable, balanced budget. And this is a time of increased economic challenge for all in our community and for our government as well. And so, you know, it is not a free pass to raise real estate taxes. We have housing affordability challenges that are causing all sorts of interesting behaviors across the Commonwealth, across the country, and it is a fallacy that real estate tax increase goes directly to housing costs. Whether you own or you rent, they go directly through. So I think it is our obligation as a board that governs in this community to try to protect the community from additional affordability challenges. And I recognize, I guess I would just say, if we're only going to be bounded by things that were in the proposed budget from the manager or have been studied previously, we don't need to do all these work sessions. This was a waste of our staff's time and our time, because if we're not going to come up with anything additional or ask a question during that process, which we asked these questions in the public safety work session last month, then I don't quite know what we're doing. And if we're going to come to the end of these work sessions with ideas that we then put in guidance, and then they sit there for 2, 3 years or more years, that's not satisfying to me, and I don't think that's meeting the needs of our community.
Thank you for sharing those additional thoughts, your truths, and mindful also that we will have to figure out a process whereby we have, there's engaging with DMF to work through ideas to get them to specificity, and then there's bringing additional board members with you as we get to detail on fees versus not fees. Fully respect all the concerns, what I propose, and mindful we will have concluding comments and can have alternate motions next Wednesday as well. But what I propose is that we move to the next category, keeping gymnastics out of this, and then go to your next category and continue to work this through, if that is
I think
okay.
that's fine, although I can't let that comment pass without noting that as chair, you set the process for the budget, including the tools whereby you wanted us to propose alternatives. I met at each of those deadlines. Each of these items was in there throughout. And so to the extent it does not feel like it's been fully baked or shopped with colleagues, I think we need to kind of examine that process and examine how much we leave in the chair's control versus sharing with the others.
Sure, I'm happy to respond that of these amendments, there's some that I don't believe DMF knew about in detail, number one. Number two, I do think there is evidence that suggests we have to be good stewards, and I can take responsibility. I'm just trying to move us forward, and I can take some responsibility, but I'm not alone, I believe, in feeling that some of these items needed to be worked in additional detail, but I won't get in the way of your or trespass on your truth that the process was imperfect. I just would maintain that I think it was fair, and there is a piece of it that is, we had on 55 plus, I asked directly the question, did you bring this forward? And the answer was, we recommend not moving it forward this year, but we want to look at it next year. And there was not, I think that there's a responsibility to do email, and there's a responsibility to verbally socialize, is what I would say. But let's keep moving forward, and you can certainly have the last word on that. We'll move to the next category, but Vice Chair Coffey, go ahead. And then we'll come back to you.
Yeah, and I think that there is a natural tension between trying to give people as much warning as possible. To me, it's even less about whether the five of us had fully vetted or understood, and it's more, was there a public conversation? Was there the ability for awareness? I mean, we're already seeing with the changes to the RPP program, for example, that people felt, despite the awareness and engagement that we put out there, that our CAPE team, I think, did work hard on to make sure people knew what was coming, a feeling that they still feel blindsided. They still didn't know that changes were happening. And so I think there's that element. I think there's the fact that we're in the middle of a master transportation plan, of which curbside management is an intentional part of that. If we make changes now, it feels a little awkward to come back and make changes later. I think there, for me, is a consideration of, especially on parking fines, having differential rates. Are things like parking in moving travel lanes or in bike lanes worth a much, much higher fine? I don't think we're ready to have those conversations, and I don't think we've had those conversations with the community. I don't think that, I think we legally can do these things, and that's one question. And then I think there's the trust of community question that I don't feel, and I am one member of this board, but I don't feel comfortable bringing forward things of this nature without having that public engagement, public conversation, and that may be a structural question about how we do that or present that, but it also nonetheless does not change that has not occurred in this moment for these things.
Thank you. And Mr. Karantonis, do you have a vestigial hand? I want to also, do you want to go forward to the next, or do you want to conclude and then go forward?
May I respond to Ms. Coffey? Sure. I definitely respect that, and I think we do everything we can in our power to give the community full transparency into our thought processes and our decision-making. In the matter of budget items, that's what we've been doing for the last 10 weeks with a great deal of time and energy from our staff and from our community and from us as well. And I guess I just would offer, if we're not willing to make changes that enable us to not move the tax rate, I don't know why we don't just rubber stamp the county manager's proposed budget, because those are the only things that have been floated. If like having conversation about this robustly today and having time for folks to send us emails and stuff is not satisfactory, then I guess I need to understand more, like, why is one budget item fine to come up with and another is not? And I think that ties the hands of the board in a way that does not do the most service to the community. So.
Sure.
Clearly here I am in the minority.
No. I want you to put it forward, and I suggest you shared those points, and you can share them and should share them again. Why don't we go to the next buckets?
Sure.
And then go forward.
Okay, the next buckets are on, again, we're in a financial crisis. Our revenues are basically flat. And rather than asking our community members to increase their real estate tax further, I would recommend that we look at all things that we could wait to do later. Those that have been shared in questions and in the budget itself are the consulting dollars on the for phase 2 for the comprehensive plan update. That number is from, I believe, the kind of mid-year closeout, so we should double check whether it has different pennies associated with it, but it should be close. The second is the study of the battery electric buses. We had budgeted for that this year. This is an additional $200,000. great to have a perfect analysis, but I think we don't need a perfect analysis to know that our buses did fine during the coldest winter ever, and we're probably okay. And then the third is not scored because I asked a question, and I asked a lot of questions, so staff have only had enough time to respond to all of them, but the response here did not get us to a score. I think we talked in the work session about heavy equipment. We have in the past deferred, and it was a bad idea. Passenger equipment, certainly in my family, we defer when things are tight, and I think we could do that, but there is no score there and no dollars taken, just more of a reminder.
Thank you. I guess I would say that we certainly can hear from all colleagues. I'll just say for my part that I do have a question. I'm not actually quite sure if Mr. Schwartzer might speak to the 500,000, whether that is a...
Yeah, I'm going to ask Emily Hughes to speak to this, because I think we may not have shared the full set of information, so I just want to clarify where we are on that.
Yeah, it's my understanding we have no funding budgeted for the phase 2 of the comp plan.
Right, I wanted to ask.
I think there was a memo when we asked the question at midterm, so we can go back and check it, but...
A work session follow-up, I can look at that. I think it may have included an estimate of what that phase would cost.
It may be an estimate.
But that it was not budgeted.
Gotcha.
Got it?
So that's an important distinction. I think it's also an important distinction for the comprehensive plan update, because in that it suggests that we may be moving forward with phase 2 as early as fall of this year. So
If that has been said, that's not correct, because we're waiting.
You're waiting,
guidance on
but it
that.
is definitely anticipated that could happen.
Right. I think there was some question about consultant dollars that had been set aside for phase 1, whether all of them had been spent yet, and I think we provided an answer on that.
Those are all committed, yes.
Yeah, and we determined that they had all been committed, because we're going to have, I think we're going to do an update, not this month, but next month's board meeting, where we give the status of all of that.
Okay, so then there is nothing for a phase 2 comp plan update in your proposed budget. Got it. Okay, anything else?
I think...
Same answer.
Go ahead, Vice Chair Coffey.
Is it the same answer on the battery electric study, or?
There is funding included in the proposed budget. I think you heard from Pierre Holloman during the work session, but again, DES would continue strongly to recommend continuation of that consultant support. It's highly specialized support. First of all, they're working on charge modeling and charge management. We just stood up the pantographs the last 2 weeks to really see how we optimize those to bring back buses and more buses. Needs engineering analysis that we do not have on staff. We need specialized consultants to do that. There is additional analysis, and while they performed in winter, they took longer to charge in winter. And so then how you balance a limited number of charging, right? You know what I mean? With buses coming back, it's technical analysis that we cannot perform. And then you put it into the route scheduling, right? And all of that. They are looking at additional gap training for the workforce there, given the change in fleet. So I understand, I respect the question. It is technical operational analysis that just can't be sent on to a management analyst, if you will. And that group is small. The Transit Bureau is really small. It's like 6 FTEs. It's tiny. It's all contracted out with the operator. So it's not, we don't have a plethora of resources in any event, but I appreciate the question. And yes, there is $200,000 budgeted in the FY27 budget to wrap up that work.
Thank you, Ms. Cowan. I certainly want to give concluding, but I guess what I'd suggest is a balance between...
I can yield.
Go ahead, Mr.
I've
Carantonis.
discussed it about the BEB, the battery electric buses. I was friendly to the idea of scrutinizing that expense, and I asked, and I got a similar response like Ms. Cowan gave us right now. And I also have to say that it is extremely interesting what these electric buses are actually accomplishing right now. For some reason, I don't know if this is on purpose, but I'm getting to write several of them because they always put on the 77 and 41.
They're not often on
And
the
it's a very good experience, and I fully understand the logistics challenges, etc. And I think that when the time comes to be ready for the final evaluation of this, or to close a chapter, I would appreciate if staff brief us on that, and I think that they are almost ready to do that. And then we can make a decision on that. I wouldn't deprive them from the ability to do this comprehensive study. It also fits very well in how the battery electric bus mobility is going to be planned in the immediate region here in Northern Virginia, which is an important NVDC project as well.
Thank you, Mr. Karantonis. I want to give you the last word. I also suggest that we kind of move forward to the next section, item 4, while giving you the last word on item 3. I think the discussion is, ongoing, and certainly happy to move forward, but that's what I'd suggest. Go for it, Ms. Cunningham.
Great. I think the other broad category here, and some of these are covered in your mark as well, but in terms of maintaining the investments we have made in the community so far, the items and amendments that I think we should make sure that we're asking are, on the issue of the rescue company, and that is a very deep cut. And again, even, if we were to add back tax revenue beyond the 1.5, that should be back on the list, in my opinion. Secondly, I think the sheriff, we're going to talk about scenarios later, so I'll skip over that. Arts, we finally, after 10 years or some long period of time, did bring them up to, kind of a inflation-adjusted mark 2 years ago. I would rather we didn't get farther behind, so that's a small number, but we had a little conversation about that already. Langston Boulevard Alliance, we are beginning the first sets of projects there. They are very thinly funded. When we had the same on Columbia Pike many years ago, we amped up that funding to support implementation, and I would recommend that we begin to do so. And then on IPA, we're going to talk about that later too, but we can make sure to come back to that. This was a really whopping $500, but the Historic Review Board requested that we eliminate the proposed HRI application fee. I'm not sure I've heard any discourse for that, but I didn't see it in the markup. And then once again, an ISD reviewer, so a plan reviewer, is being proposed for elimination. Here, multiples are, and I would strongly suggest that if we are going to raise the tax rate, and I actually have a balanced one where I didn't raise it, but we'd have to go back and recalculate it with some of the changes, that we restore at least one of those positions, because I think we heard very clearly from the team that they are very worried about the future of the workforce there. Separately, facilities utilization, that one is really just, we are going to put in guidance that we should study facility utilization. We've said that many times before. Sometimes having a budget item enables us to make sure that we're tracking against it across the year. I had asked the question about could we extend the Langston hours while Madison is closed. The question response has the information with which one might cobble together a scenario, but it basically says, no, we're not extending those hours. We will just service them from Lover Run or TJ in the extended hours. Other DPR invasives removal, that is a 3-year process. We've talked about that each of the last 2 years. This is cutting it by 2/3, and I think that's penny wise and pound foolish. Park maintenance falls in the same area. Restrooms we talked about separately, and that may be on your list to talk about still later. And then library collections and the library, I think this is a misunderstanding. I thought you were proposing reducing hours, so you can ignore that. That's it.
Sure. Well, thank you for running through those. A number of them we will take up that are in highlighted spaces. And I leave the floor open to others if you want to comment in detail. I do think there's some that, certainly it is a list that is quite long of potential additions. We haven't done we'd have to, the cost pieces as they fit together, I don't know if there's a summation at the bottom, and I don't know quite The other pieces, opportunity grants is also mentioned. And
I think, again, it's just pointing out that if you're going to raise the tax rate further, and, before you raise the tax rate further, you should make sure we're maintaining things. And then if you're going to raise it further, these are things that should be top priority, in my opinion, because they're investing in what we already have and making sure that we're, not deferring maintenance and costs to the future.
Sure, and fully respect there's competing priorities that we've tried to serve through the budget. One is to serve all residents, one is to serve our most vulnerable, and one is to have financially sustainable. Those are sort of three big priorities that I think we identified. Mr. Spain.
Yes, just of some clarity, Mr. Chair. What areas within Ms. Board Member Cunningham's proposal are we going to go back and look at? Which area? Just the.
Sure. Items 38, 39, and.
One second.
Go ahead.
You said 38?
Yep.
Okay.
38, 39, and 40.
Okay.
We covered items 33/34.
You didn't do collections, I don't think.
Oh, we didn't do collections. 34 we covered.
Okay.
Collections, is that an addition or decrease? It's an addition.
Addition.
Okay. So we could think about that as you think about item 32. I'd like you to highlight, please, because that is something that I identified that we have not talked through that we will need to. So we'll highlight item 32, line 32. And then there are others. I think we're going to go back to, let's see, if we scroll up, the two sheriff's items and item 23, I think we've covered through guidance, keeping in mind that there's detail there. Those are the ones. Sure.
Give me pause right there, Mr. Chair and colleagues. Would we be open to talking through line 24 in the next year? Can we come back to that potentially?
When we get to the next stage?
Yeah.
Sure, that's fine with me. But what I suggest is if colleagues have other thoughts, Mr. Karantonis, then we move back to the areas.
I want to gauge the interest for line item 30, which is a partial total restoration of invasive removal program. So that's the, this is one of the programs that have excellent long-term, medium and long-term return on investment. It doesn't have to be 200,000, but can be a little bit less, but still, supplementing the existing efforts.
Yeah. It was 300 this year, so that would be continuing. I think it's 300 this year, and the proposed has it going to 100, so that would just be continuing it.
Thank you. So I guess, broadly, there's a lot of different pieces to this category. With respect to, we simultaneously should value what we have, and I think perhaps one of Arlington's greatest strengths over the last 50 years has been evolving and trying to serve our residents the best possible. We do have multiple priorities that we're working on, and 60% of our community are renters. They would feel some burden. I think there's some evidence that if you line up fees directly in comparison to real estate tax rates, there's some progressivity that often is associated with real estate tax rates. But I take these, and I think we should move to the next stage. And if there are pieces of this individually that you want to resurface as we work through the highlighted items on the chair's mark, that's what I suggest we go to next. Mr. Weinshank, did you have an addition?
Lines 32 to 24 were the two, right?
No, in particular, lines 32 and 24 were named.
Mr. Spain, I think you mean to name 25 as well for the IPA.
Did you mean?
Excuse me. Yeah, so we can, let's talk through 25
And
as well.
26, actually.
Let me look at 26. And 26.
25 and 26, but not 24, as I understand it. Is that right,
Over
Mr.
24 as well.
24, 25, and 26. Got it. Vice Chair Coffey, is that a vestigial hand, or did you want to share thoughts?
No, I think one thing I would be open to talking about is the rescue. I note in particular that the delta between the different scenarios of sheriff's compensation could cover the delta of the rescue, at least of what's on screen, and there may be an additional question around revenue implications of taking or not taking the rescue cut. But that is one that if we were to make some other changes, I think to me out of this list rises to the top of the conversation.
So with colleagues' agreement, we will add line 20, unless there's objection, to those that are highlighted, and we will focus on these highlighted items to move forward as we have the conversation on the other highlighted items, while providing an opportunity at the end, should we be efficient and work through it, to also have you raise specific other items, if that is acceptable with all. What's our next stage? Is there any other additional points I think that covers?
I think line 30 was also highlighted.
Was line 30 highlighted by colleagues other than Ms. Cunningham?
Mr. Carantonis.
Mr. Carantonis. Then let's do line 30. Onward. Is there other items that colleagues, you or Ms. Cunningham or colleagues would like to further highlight? It's covered. Thank you. So let's return now to the main spreadsheet. We'll work through some of the biggest issues. I believe the first item that I suggested we talk to is the sheriff's compensation. And we'll wait till Mr. Carantonis can bring that up. I'll provide context with respect, Mr. Weinshank can bring that up. I'll provide context. I was seeing Mr. Carantonis's face. So these are the various funding options, and I will be concrete and say I do believe that the standard with respect to these various options, and what led me to recommend option B2, is that I do believe we are investing $5 million in ongoing in our police and our fire, and our other public safety element is our sheriffs. And our sheriffs, we have been on a road to try and make sure that we have a safe and rehabilitative jail, and I believe investing in our sheriff's deputies, sergeants and lieutenants, so that they will best be able to also serve those remanded to their care is an important component of our efforts to maintain public safety and our efforts in addition to retain, going forward, our sheriff's office employees. And so what B2 is, and I will share, the starting salary for a sheriff is in the $63,000 to $65,000 range, and I will share that I do believe this is an important priority, and I understand that there are trade-offs that we make. But I think that salary, if our community really thought about the importance of rehabilitation and how we value criminal justice, I think that investment in B2, which is essentially higher steps, and moving towards a step and grade system will be critical to the morale, motivation, focus, and retention of our sheriff's employees going forward. So I think there's a question or two there for DMF. One is, just to clarify, this additional option C is another one that we've looked at, and option B2, as I understand it, would lead to a step and grade system and would be significant, but could lead to a step and grade system after 1 year, or is it 2 years that it would misuse?
So option B2 would take sheriff employees to their step equals years of service in 1 year. It's a slightly lower rate schedule than option C is. So it's kind of the in-between of these options.
And then the only other question for DMF, and colleagues will have thoughts and we'll have extended discussion, I'm sure. The only other question I would ask is, there's discussion of the 2 years. Option C, when presented, had a smaller score in the first year and a larger score in the second year. Option B2, can you speak at all to the score in the second year of option B2, or do we not know it, or how does that work?
I can't give you a specific dollar amount. We haven't had a chance to model that out, but it would be a typical increase. It would be each employee moving up one step, which would be around a 2 to 3% increase for that year.
So let me see if I just understand. That means the full cost over 2 fiscal years of B2 and C I mean, we can certainly make educated guesses, but you haven't modeled that, so it's not certain as to what the cost necessarily over a full 2 years would be.
Yeah, the only one we've modeled over 2 years was option C, and that was making a big assumption. That was making the assumption that employees would move to step equals years of service in year 2 of C, which loads a lot of that cost into C because they get 3-step increases in the first year, and then they're going to get whatever number of steps they need to get to steps equals years of service in the second year. And for some employees, that's more than another 3 steps. And option C is also the schedule of rates is higher. So it's going to just be more costly than the other options overall over the 2-year implementation cycle.
Got it, Mr. Schwartz.
Just for a little bonus item, and it's not going to affect, I think, what you do today, but you realize that with the way the governor has amended the collective bargaining legislation, there is no dispute, I think, about the potential for the deputies to collectively bargain if that becomes something that happens. So
That is
I
helpful.
know Ms. Coffey's mouth is wide open on that one, but I don't think you've thought that through. I don't think that should necessarily change what your approach is here, but I'm just saying, when we get here for the conversation next year, there may be other factors.
Thank you. And Ms. Coffey may be able to help, but I think that the amendments may lead to a multi-year stage towards that collective bargaining, which if it is 2030, we'd have to see what that means. But there's certainly significant uncertainty, and I will be concrete, transparent that I do believe, I think that we can talk about vacancy rates, and I do not believe the vacancy rates for currently preceding the step of moving our police to 90,000 starting salary and whatever we do in this budget with respect to our sheriffs, do not believe the data shows high vacancy rates. I'll certainly be disabused of that, Mr. Schwartz, but go ahead.
And again, I'm bringing this up not necessarily because I think it affects this, but we haven't reached the point where we've reached any sort of memorandum of understanding with the constitutionals, and I know Ms. Coffey's been working with our legislative team very directly on this. If the constitutional employees decide to collectively bargain, the question is who will pay the price of their collectively bargained agreements, and I don't think that the legislation speaks to that.
Certainly.
I can guess
Much
from past performance.
much in flux there. So we have, I see Vice Chair Coffey, your light, as well as Ms. Cunningham. Let's start, if it's okay, with Vice Chair Coffey and then go to Ms. Cunningham.
Great. And just a question, because I know we've had to address compression and resetting our step and grade scales in our other public safety departments. Did we do that in 1 year for our other public safety groups? I feel like I recall it being like a multi-year process to get them to the right place as well.
It did take a few years, and I think that even though we reached an agreement with both the police and fire union to move to a grade and step system, we estimated what the number was, and then it turned out that we had to readjust that, and it took more than 1 year, essentially to move to years of service equaling steps can be a pretty complicated process. I'm going to ask Ms. Hughes if she wanted to add anything on that, because she was involved in the mechanics of that.
Yeah, and I'm going off memory. I think we were able to move fire a little faster than we were police, but it was just due to where people were, right? As I recall. But yeah, it did take multiple years for police, and I believe most of fire went in the first year or two. I don't remember exactly.
Gotcha. So yeah, I think that's helpful to me and for my thinking around, I think we've all reached a general consensus agreement that we're not doing nothing here. But to me, I think a multi-year movement aligns us. And, I will say that part of what we've heard is wanting to be treated more similarly to our other public safety departments. And I actually think that that is the most similar with how we've dealt with their compression and pay scale issues in the other public safety departments.
Okay. Ms. Cunningham?
Yeah, I would concur with Ms. Coffey's comment, and I've been trying to ask this as gently as possible without creating 10,000 additional scenarios, because we've already had a lot. But this seems like a multi-year question, just as it was with the police, and that we need to know what destination we are aiming for in order to figure out how to get there. I think we did a lot of pre-work on this year to try to get the data in the room and to make sure we were all understanding each other. And I think if I'm understanding, the reality is the salary studies and the retention and hiring data today still support the manager's proposed budget. The morale and feelings and wishes for a different world are kind of nudging us in different directions. So I'm certainly open to being nudged in a different direction, but I've not yet seen what the horizon is that we're trying to get to and how this fits in a multi-year strategy, let alone how much it costs in that multi-year strategy. And I think it's important that we have that. And perhaps if we're a year away from collective bargaining, I'm not sure. I just haven't been able to digest that particular bill fully, but it might be that we want to do something more interim and then work this year to get a 3-year plan so that we, have a process. And that might, beautifully align with collective bargaining, and then we'll just have to do it once. But I don't see the map here. And I think you all know that I continue to have some concerns about the data is not showing us that there is a problem. I recognize that sometimes you can feel the problem before the data shows it.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. Mr. Karantonis?
The reason, can you explain me again, the reason why we have a B and B2 is just because of the difference in the net increase, right?
Yeah, so the rates are slightly different. B2 has the rate structure set a little bit higher than B. Otherwise, it has people going to the same steps and at the same point in the fiscal year.
Right, which means that in the following year, they would have the same treatment. Basically, it's just the starting point is different.
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Karantonis. Mr. Spain?
Mr. Chair, thank you, and my colleagues for their comments. I think I'm digesting a lot right now. For me, it's not about morale and feelings, okay? It's about, at the end of the day, you have to understand the roles and functions of LEOs, right? And once you come from that point of reference, you will see that there's significant pay disparities between law enforcement officials. That's what guides me in this conversation, and why I think it is going to take a multi-year approach to get to some level of pay that's comparable to what other LEOs are getting in Arlington. If one believes or subscribes to the idea that they are distinctly different, police officers and deputy sheriffs or sheriffs, I think you're missing the mark. So I think B2 right now is a good start to get us in the direction where we need to go. I've had continuing conversations. I know Board Member Cunningham and I was with the sheriff yesterday, and I told him that, you're not going to get $7 million, point blank. But we need to start this trajectory on what does right look like, whether it's grading steps, but get this pay up to a point that's commensurate with that of their peers in other departments. Not doing that at the end of the day is bothersome to me, and I understand that there's concerns, but I'm content with B2 at this moment. And thank you, Chair, for the mark. Thank you also for the extended conversations we've had regarding the Sheriff Department.
Thank you, Mr. Spain. I proposed B2 because I do believe that, we certainly paid attention and should have to the concerns of the many who testified on gymnastics, and I think we should also be mindful of the many who serve in our sheriff's office. And I do think that I am not in a space, this is not a proposal that keeps alignment with between our police and our sheriff, but it is important if we want a safe jail to have, to be careful to make sure over the coming year, and certainly if your salary if you see salaries going to 90,000 starting, and you don't see real effort, or you see a more of an analytic rather than as I would say, a sort of a focused sort of every effort that's plausible or that's within reason. That's why I'm at B2. I think I hear, and I know from past conversations that I believe there may be detail. I think Vice Chair Coffey, you may be at C, and the same may be true with respect to Ms. Cunningham, and we will then need to hear from Mr. Carantonis. Certainly can have additional discussion if we want to in the interim, but that's where I think we are, and I think while we want to be thorough and air all concerns, I think that's an important part of things. We also are already at our time for this meeting, and so I want to keep moving us towards working towards a conclusion before 6 when there are other meetings that several of us have, I know. So, Mr. Carantonis, the question is more or less to you as to your views with respect to B2 or C in this particular instance.
I don't support C. I support B more than B2, but I mean, at the end, I could negotiate that.
So I'm sure there'll be conversation. You will be asked by Vice Chair Coffey, Ms. Cunningham, who might prefer B over B2. We are working to get towards, but want to give you full leash and space to share your view. My reasoning for seeking B2 was that I felt that it was important. B, at its root, led to increases that I saw as on par with our non-public safety employees, and given the big skin in the game that we're putting for police and fire, that's why I sought out B2, but I respect the views as you come forward to them and want to give you the chance to add additional thoughts, Mr. Carantonis. Did you have that's my 2 cents on B versus B2. But
No, I understand. I mean, this is why I wanted to make sure that that the difference is just about 1% of
Sure.
difference. I'm trying to fit it in the budget as we have it.
Of course.
I wouldn't object to get to B2 if the other appropriations fit.
So you're asking, I think, then, that we put a pause in the sheriff discussion and finish it on B or B2 at a later time, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Ms. Coffey, Ms. Cunningham, any particular start?
I just want to clarify something you said, which is that you prefer option B2 because it's most closely aligned with the rest of our employees?
No, I prefer option B2 because I see the distance between what we're investing in police and fire on the public safety side versus our sheriff to be too great to make me feel comfortable that we are not addressing the big needs that I see as relevant to maintaining positive momentum in terms of programming and safety at the jail. I fully wish we had additional resources so that we could value all at the public safety scale level, and I understand that that's a relevant policy concern, but I do think the investment is worthwhile in this case. Vice Chair Coffey, or did you want us just to go forward and then come back?
No, I mean, I think the only thought that I'll share is I too wish we had the resources to do many, many, many different things. And I think C or B still remain very reasonable and extensive investments that many other lines of business that we all value and support are not receiving in this budget.
Absolutely fair statement. We will move forward with B and B2 as the primary operators of the conversation, unless I've miscaptured that. So, yeah.
I would just suggest that I am at C or B. Mr. Carantonis is at B or
B2.
Or B2.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
mistake.
my preference is B, but I can live with B2 if we get to find the space for that.
And I am C or B.
And there,
As am I. So I was going to hypothesize that we're at B with 3 votes, but perhaps one is just.
But what I heard Mr. Carantonis, with due respect, what I heard Mr. Carantonis say is he wanted to see the rest of this to take a look at it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll come back to the sheriff's compensation, if that's okay with folks. The next item is gymnastics, I believe. And on gymnastics, I'm hopeful that someone can come to our aid to help us reach a conclusion. I have no particular philosophic, maybe it's appropriate for Ms. Cunningham, you to describe what your current thinking is with respect to your new proposal, because in the initial chair's mark, I tried to take your
Yep, I
other
think
proposal.
I sent DMF, there you go. They have it included, so I put it in the same vernacular.
So let's just see, how does that 202 number, it's 25 to 86% with an increase to 100% cost recovery. How does that compare with number-wise and language-wise what's in the chair's mark, if it's possible to pull that up? I'm inclined to just take this suggestion. Your point about competitive cost recovery, I think is persuasive, and so we may be able to just take this and then move forward. Unless are colleagues amenable to that, or is good with that? Ms. Vice Chair Coffey, do you see, I think it is in the direction of some of our conversations, but I want to be sure I'm thorough.
Yeah, I guess if I just want to make sure we are understanding what we're doing here. So what had been in is a move to 74% cost recovery in fiscal 27, with the plan to basically reach 86% cost recovery as an ongoing commitment in the future, which is why we have it split 132,000 in one time, because that covers the delta between 74% cost recovery and 86% cost recovery for one fiscal year. And then the $202,000 in ongoing, because that is the net tax support for 86% cost recovery. And what is being proposed is that we reach 86% cost recovery in this fiscal year 27 budget, and then as a one-time coverage, but with the plan that for next year, fees will increase again to have 100% cost recovery, leading to 0 net tax support for the competitive program
In year 2.
in fiscal 28 and beyond.
Sure.
I think that's right. And I think what's implied in the mark is that you would be getting to 100% over 3 years, most likely, since we try to get to 100% for competitive. We don't show the 3rd year. So I'm comfortable with either, but my point was, in a time where we're trying to not raise the tax rate, I'd be willing to take the more aggressive 2-year step.
I think that your comments certainly align with Ms. Vice Chair Coffey's, as I understand it, and I would support moving line 28 and fully and replacing the competitive piece of the chair's mark. I do want to make sure, is there any concerns that DMF has? Is this something that you need to analyze further? Has this already been analyzed? And go ahead.
Yes, we've looked at it with DPR. Yes,
Sure.
yes. Now, I think, to be clear, then it's a 25% increase in rates this year, right? And then next year, it will be substantially more to get us to 86% as a goal. I'm not sure, doesn't sound like we're talking about going to 100% in next year. That could be a separate conversation for next year. And the one-time versus ongoing, I will admit, we've talked a little bit, it's a little confusing. I think you can include it, and we will always, if we need to make an adjustment, we will do so later, at closeout or whatever. Do you guys follow? I think that's the way to handle it.
If I may, I think the 2 options are both on the table, and I want to make sure, I think the math is the math, whether you go in a 2-year pace or a 3-year pace. But I think the question is, it's a price elasticity question, right? So do you think you may lose more people if you move quickly or not? And so if you had all the resources in the world, I'd probably choose the 3-year model, not the 2-year model, because it reduces the risks a little bit. But again, I had it in my trying to get to 1.5 cent
No, that's not what she said.
tax rate. So it's, the most aggressive in trying to preserve for the community the least affordability hit for everyone, and then keep the costs in discretionary items.
Well, we've had extended discussion about gymnastics fees. I'm sure that there will be additional discussion over the coming 2 years. But I guess I would say the principle that on competitive, we should reach 100% cost recovery is solid for me. And so while I do think it's important to acknowledge that there would be fairly extended discussion as we work forward. Is there anything, Ms. Cowan or DMF, that you would like to add further?
I just want to confirm that in '27, for the budget year that we're talking about, it's a 25% increase, notwithstanding one time or ongoing, to get us to 74%. It is not to get us to 86% in the first year.
That's correct.
Right, just wanted to restate that.
That's
And
what
then
is included.
Yeah, that's what's included here.
Yeah.
And I thought the discussion that we were having was whether we wanted to change that to go to the 86%
Right.
faster. Okay.
Wait a minute, okay.
He just moved.
So we'll have to,
what's
so
here.
you would,
Sorry, okay.
you would want to both go to 86% in year one and then get to 100% in year two, is that correct?
I said I am open. For the sake of keeping the tax rate from going above 1.5 or going far above 1.5, I am open to a more aggressive treatment here, which would be the 86%. I think what I'm sensing across the table is a concern about the potential price elasticity, which I would honor. So like I said, I think if there's room, I'd do the 3-year version. If there's not, I'd consider the 2-year version instead of eliminating the program.
Got it, so I do not know that we have a 3-year modeled version or amendment ready for us.
No, that's the 2000, yeah, the one you have here is essentially a 3-year one, or could be a 3-year one. It's getting to 86% in year 2. You could always go to
To the
100% in year 3, but it
100%.
doesn't matter for this year's budget.
Got it.
There are not many examples
Mr.
that we
Karantonis, go ahead.
achieved 100%. though,
Yeah. So we need, what you're saying is we can figure out a 3-year possibility. And what I had thought was the other amendment in line 28 was a 2-year approach that would go 74% and 100. I may have been misreading, but maybe you could go back, Mr. Weinschenk, to the prior number, just to be sure. And we do need to reach conclusion on this, not easy. So I think that 25% fee increase in year 1, DMF, I'm interested in this. Does that lead you to 74% cost recovery or 86%?
A 25% would lead you to 74% in year 1.
So
recovery,
that
thank
is not, the language in that is not currently accurate. And I would ask, in the interest of working towards conclusion, if we can try to do, if that is the amendment and is scored and has 74% cost recovery in year 1 and 100% cost recovery in year 2, that's what I would be supportive of in light of your comments with respect to price elasticity. But colleagues, I'm wondering if we can reach towards consensus on that front. Mr. Spain?
No.
Okay. Vice Chair Coffey, is it vestigial or not? Or did you want to speak now? I know. So
Tracking with this.
in order to fix, 25% fee increase leads only to 74% cost recovery. So we would need to change the number 86 to 74 in that item. And then we would need to see from DMF if the two numbers, the one-time and total, actually are accurate, or if we do or do not know the answer to that question.
Yeah, it's from your, it's just 86% was wrong.
Okay.
Right.
Colleagues, are you good with substituting that? I know it's not, I
think that basically you should take out the 25%, because the fee increase is higher, right? Because 25% was for 74.
wait a minute. I understood the reverse, that the 25% leads only to a 74% fee
Right.
cost
For
recovery.
86,
So
you
we
need
need to
a
change
higher-
the number 86 to 74 in that.
No, what we need to do is change the 25% to whatever
30.
percentage gets us to 86%.
And that's the proposal that you want, irrespective of the price
44.
elasticity
It's 40,
point.
yeah, if you, yeah, I think we need to, what are your cost
Well, that
recovery
line
goals,
at
and then
least
what
wants
does
to
it
get.
Yes, the cost recovery goals that here has is 86%. It could be.
Okay, so now I understand the proposed amendment better. Colleagues, Mr. Karantonis, your thoughts on the amendment?
I support the 86% or therearound. I mean, higher than 74% the first year. So that would lead to a higher increase for competitive gymnastics.
Sure. Mr. Spain, go ahead.
Supportive of it. I think we just changed it 25 to 44, and that kind of helped me get my mind right here. Because like in all, this can be a very long conversation, but I think this does give us time to, in this competitive and very, what I would call an elective aspect of our park system. It doesn't go away, but it keeps it, and I'm fully supportive.
Sure,
This is
thank
Mr. Wright.
you. Vice Chair Coffey, I took you as supportive of this, right? Any additional?
The only thing I'll say is that I can be supportive of moving to 86% cost recovery in fiscal '27. I think we simply just don't know how that is going to impact the program for what happens in fiscal '27.
It is ongoing.
And I at least would like to not commit at this moment to 100%. I think maintaining at least 86% cost recovery in future fiscal years is fine by me. I'm not ready to make that commitment. It is okay if the rest of the board is ready to make that commitment. I just was not prepared to say
Vice Chair
that
Coffey,
today.
I mean, Ms. Cunningham, is that amenable to you?
Yeah, so I think you're just suggesting that it would be the 202 as ongoing for now? Is that what you're suggesting?
I guess so, because I just think that we just don't know
Yeah.
what's going to happen
I
with
think that's fine.
participation.
I think that's fine.
So that looks like it's slide, Ms. Cowan, go ahead. That looks like it's line 14, correct?
It's conveniently staff option 1, which might be sort of helping clarify
It all comes
how
back
awesome
around.
our staff
Colleagues.
are and how right they were from the
Sure.
beginning.
Well, it was arrived at in part through agreement from you to Vice Chair Coffey's comments. Colleagues, does line 14 work for all colleagues on this item?
It works for me, and I agree with Ms. Coffey with Vice Chair Coffey that we really don't know how. I mean, this is a significant fee increase. It's of course only for the competitive part. It's still competitive to alternatives, but this we have
Thank
to
you.
respect that.
Mr. Weinshank and Wizards, let's take the highlight off of recreational. Let's replace this item in for competitive, please. And let's see what those numbers lead to. Got it. Recreational gymnastics, do colleagues have amendments to line 42 or not? If you recall, I took one look at the 50% amount, and it's $3 to $134, and that was the end of worrying about 50%, for context, because we had multiple discussions on this. I think this is consistent, but I am open to, if this is not.
Can I ask a clarifying?
Sure.
For staff, is that the option that brings us to be aligned with the private gyms in the area for our rec fees?
I think it's 86%.
Yeah, no, it's 60, so this is the 367 total. Sorry. We need to go to. The 367 was first of all, I want to say this, 3% only increase on all adaptive. I
Yes,
just want to
thank you
say
for
that the
sharing that.
record, to
Yes, we
start
are
there.
preserving only inflation increase to the adaptive gymnastics programs.
Right,
Thank
so
you
I
both.
just wanted.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. The 367 is the 50% increase that is close to private gyms as we, right?
Okay.
As we know. To only do 30 is 449. That gets you to 64% cost recovery, the 50%, but that eases in pending our conversation this summer on additional fees.
Got it. Okay, then I am aligned with aligning us to the private gyms.
May I clarify?
Sure.
In the question response, it says for the 64% cost recovery, the price, I see, the price increase is 3%, 250, but it's 50 for everyone but adaptive.
Pretty much,
I'm
yeah.
just a
Does that
little
make
slow.
sense?
Yep, I got it.
Yeah, I know, those big percentages, there was just so much to summarize.
So I'm aligned with the line as it is right now.
So can we go back to the other slide to figure out what the proposed, is this,
I'm in support of that now. I misunderstood the.
you're supportive? I think everybody's supportive. We will take the highlight off, line 42. Thank you very much. Line 43, we have to come back to. Line 44, I think that this is where I suggest we go to next. This is discussion of two positions that have been requested by our Community Oversight Board and IPA. And the proposal is to freeze, but to create the presumption that in the fiscal 2028 budget, we would have a deputy director. But first, to put in the budget a management analyst in line 44 for this year. Colleagues, discussion, thoughts? I see.
Manager.
Well, no,
Yes, go ahead.
I have no problem with this. I just want to make sure you clarify, if you're getting a management analyst for the oversight board, who that person is actually working for, because
Sure.
this could be groundbreaking precedent where you actually have a staff person working for an independent commission. I'm not saying that's good or bad, but I just want to make sure you've thought that through, whether that person is working for the county board or for the commission, because I think that's a policy question that I'm not sure has really been surfaced. And I have no opinion on what you decide with that.
Good. You decidedly do not want to have an opinion on that issue. Good question. I think that perhaps it's the slide deck and some analysis of what's there, but I had envisioned that they would be simultaneously dotted line reporting to the Community Oversight Board and also dotted line reporting to the IPA with ultimate responsibility to the county board. Is that amenable to colleagues as a concept, even if you don't?
The IPA
Absolutely.
is staffing the COB, so therefore this is a management analyst that will be working for the
I think we
IPA.
need to revise the wording. I think this is a member of the IPA's team in the county board office.
So COB or IPA/COB management analysts,
CBO,
CBO is your
Yeah.
acronym?
well, county board office.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the CBO is what he's used on this one, line 48. So CBO, management analyst for COB and IPA, is that sufficiently okay? Or do we want to further edit?
I would just say /IPA.
Yeah, /IPA. Okay, so Mr. Spain.
Yes. So we have two areas. Name change is all fine with me, but I think as we get into the details, it'll be about what are we trying to do here? So I had a conversation, of course, with the IPA several times and also her presentation. The desire of the IPA right now is that the management analysts, which we are projecting here, that go to an unfunded position and that we flip 59 and make the IPA deputy director position as the funded position and hold. Understanding that right now we have, I call it single point of failure with just the IPA and no second in charge. And some of the work that needs to be done within the IPA and COB's office right now, a deputy can do that. What's going on is that the IPA is covering down on a lot of initiatives and unable to really engage herself in that particular role because there is no deputy. We have an individual there, Ethan, who's working on a number of things right now relative to CBO. So the preference would be the IPA deputy director, and then we will CBO management analyst make that the unfunded position. That is the request from the IPA. And also, as a member of the COB liaison, that is my recommendation as well.
Thank you, Mr. Spain. Vice Chair Coffey.
I am agnostic between the two positions, and I'm happy to listen to the recommendation from the IPA herself. I, however, am in a position, at least at the moment, where I only want to include one position, the one that we can fund in this fiscal year. I think it's totally fine if we want to come back and have this on our, to-do list for next year, but I think I don't want to make promises we can't keep. It's the same reason why I'm not comfortable, and we'll have a different conversation around partial year FTE funding. I think we don't know what 2028 is going to bring, and I don't want to make a promise to both our staff and our community that we don't know that we're going to be able to keep. We've got a lot of frozen positions that we've kept in the budget year after year after year, and I think it is really frustrating. It's a very nice signal of the things that we care about and want to do, but it's also very frustrating to our community and our teams that we add these things and we don't cut them because they're important, but we also don't fund them. So I think if we decide that the most important thing right now that we can fund is the IPA deputy director role, I am in support of that. I'm happy to do that. I just would ask that we not add something that we can't fund.
Sure. So let me just see, there's one other issue that's out there, which is you had a proposal for there's several discussions of temporary staff funding. And is it okay can we all agree that we would wrap that into this discussion, whatever we just conclude? Or do you have a separate desire to pursue temporary funding for the office as a whole?
I'm fine to, that was, I think, an earlier suggestion that has been overtaken by
Events.
our current discussions.
Ms. Cunningham.
So as the co-liaison to COB, I would concur with the recommendation to do the deputy director. I would add that there is a need to sustain the $65,000 in kind of operating expenses, which would include some contracting dollars. So there's a $25,000 gap that fell out in this year's budget. There's an amendment in the list to add back.
So I just was trying to understand, that's an additional amendment that you're interested in.
Can
Correct.
I ask
Sure.
a question?
Sure.
And hopefully, I think you all might be the right ones to answer it. I know some of that operating budget support was used to contract for staff to do various work. If there is an additional actual in-house staff member, and this kind of goes to the conversation that we had with Julie Evans as well.
This was the number she suggested, $250,000 when you gave her a blank check, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. But I guess I'm just trying to figure out.
Yeah, it's counterintuitive. They haven't been able to spend on engagement, training, and outreach to the extent that they plan to because they don't have enough hands to get it out the door. So it is true that in this year, we used some of that funds that normally would go towards engagement activities to get caught up. Yeah, it was redirected. And that might happen again while we're waiting on the management analyst. But I think 65 should be the baseline. And I think we had a robust conversation about that.
So let me just see if I understand. Mr. Spain, are you amenable to that 65 and additional administrative support?
Yeah, but I want to go back to what the vice chair stated and let everyone know that I hear the concern about signaling, and I'm okay with it, honestly, in this budget cycle, the management analyst not being listed as unfunded, but, it's going to come back, whether we can entertain it at that time. It is what we'll figure that all out, but I appreciate her thoughts on that. So I just believe that a rule of thumb that we need to perhaps consider is as we look at our entire public safety apparatus, colleagues, that when we grow, decide who's growing and if that's actually equitable to meet the demand signal that is coming out from the community. You can't grow one aspect and don't grow the other, right? So thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I'm open to that. I will support that. And I think the $65,000 in the ongoing is much needed.
Wait a minute, let me just see if I understand. Was the amendment to be $65,000 in ongoing or one time for administrative support?
It's to add $25,000 in ongoing so that it will be a total of $65,000.
Right, because they're already getting some.
It's already $45,000 in ongoing. Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Garantonis, to you.
So
I mean, we're close to consensus.
Right.
I want to hear your voice, but I could name consensus that all four of us could name. Over to you.
Right. First of all, I'm for the addition of the 25,000. I don't have
Okay.
an issue with that. The IPA made a powerful. The testimony that moved me was the chairwoman of COB here that basically showed me a picture of a management analyst supporting all these functions, etc. Now, I think that the progression is to strengthen the office and the function with the management analyst and then have a deputy director, which I believe that for very good reasons, succession, competence, etc., is just a logical progression here. I am open to.
So in the interest
both
of
scenarios.
consensus, because we got lots of areas to work out, let's do this, what I propose, and colleagues, let me know if you disagree, is 25,000 in additional ongoing per the liaisons this year. My view was that the management analyst, due respect, I also did a little time as liaison, my view was that the management analyst was the best way forward, but you guys are liaisons, let's move forward. So 25,000 in ongoing added to the support, and then change the number and the name of the position to deputy director, and that requires, I think, another 30 or so thousand in ongoing. Roughly, it is scored at 172. And then, in addition, I hear alignment and agreement that we would remove line. We would just not have any additional mention of the management analyst in line with the vice chair's request. Is that
that's
amenable, Mr. Spain?
Yep.
Amenable all colleagues?
Ms. Cunningham is good?
Thank you. We will move forward to the next. So we've gotten we took a few out of this with that. The IPA, now line 44, please give me less yellow when you can, Mr. Weinshank, by de-highlighting line 44. We're trying to get there by 6. So the next is the AED Catalyst or Innovation Grants. Let me see if I recall our discussion on that. I think it was Mr. Spain, you may have had the most question or concern. And I'm hoping that we can get towards agreement with guidance language that would perhaps require the manager to come back.
I'm good.
Okay, we'll stick with 250. Colleagues, amenable. Mr. Carantonis, we know.
I'm strongly supportive, and we know how this worked before.
You're good?
This is not new.
Okay, Ms. Cunningham.
I can get around the number, though I'd prefer it a little lower, but the description, I think, should be different. It should be AED director contingency or director discretion or something. It should not have catalyst in it per
How about
conversation.
Catalyst/innovation/AED director with a note that says guidance that the manager will come back to the board with specifics before the money is available.
Great.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Yes.
This is okay.
Yes.
Yeah, it's fine.
You still,
Shorter would be discretion, but that's fine.
okay, okay. I'm not trying to, and then we got it. So 47, the highlighted goes away. Do not, if you got substantive things, speak your truth, of course. Let me see if I can remember on humanitarian assistance. I think that it was Ms. Cunningham, you had the most concern, but I also think maybe Vice Chair Coffey, you mentioned concern about the specifics in this case. Go ahead, Ms. Cunningham.
I would recommend we consider that with opportunities grants, because I think there's some overlap and tangle, as you described it.
They don't. They are two different things.
Okay.
I mean, I believe that the purposes, I think that there's fair and that there's the purposes of the humanitarian grants is to meet identified sort of short-term pieces, but I don't know. I'm looking for a way forward. Vice Chair Coffey.
I had no concerns on the humanitarian assistance. I think, to me, they are distinct because that is serving targeted responses to external, non-local factors. I think there's as I shared earlier, I think there's a conversation to pin on physical healthcare and health insurance for us to have over the next year, but in terms of what is currently proposed for this moment, I have no issue.
Mr. Karantonis.
This humanitarian assistance is actually a continuation of something that we've done before, and the reasons why we've done before continue to exist. And actually, they are worse. So legal aid, the extra 75K, the OER program support, etc. All this clicks for me is supported, so I have no issues with that.
Thank you. There are items that are,
There's some overlap, right? So I think 250 of it is a continuation of either exactly or the spirit of the previous efforts. There's the OAR and the healthcare item, which are then duplicated in the opportunities grant. Or the piece,
yeah.
but I can live with it as 350, and we can make it up in the
I
other
think,
line item.
plausibly, we just have Mr. Spain coming back. I think that there's probably a majority for the 350, but I'm not discounting the argument that you're making, Ms. Cunningham. The question is on humanitarian assistance. Are you good with the 350? Any concerns? Colleagues, I will posit, and we can come fully to the opportunities grant. We will. So I would say line 49, no more yellow at this stage. Seeing that as sort of an approximation of some level of agreement. We may need more food than that at some point, Mr. Deputy Clerk. The NVRC strategic initiative funding, I see this ultimately, as we balance the concerns that you have raised, I see this ultimately as me in a rare moment of sanity trying to avoid even misdemeanors related to budget pieces. And that is not, it's certainly the case that we can come back later and move this to the general fund, but that is the approach. That's my argument in addition to what I've articulated. And I do think that the leadership of NVRC has got the exact right idea, and this is in response to desires of accountability from many localities, but in particular Fairfax County, that wants a clear strategic plan. But I open the floor, Vice Chair Coffey.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I guess one of my questions is around, like, if we're going to set aside money, are our neighboring localities setting aside money, and what happens if they don't, I don't want to be stuck paying for things for the rest of the region.
No chance are we giving a dime
it's
if the
only
rest of the region doesn't come with us. Due respect to the rest of the region.
Yeah,
But I will personally make sure that there's no check or no wire transfer that ever occurs if Fairfax and the others don't get themselves contribute.
That's fine. That answers my question.
It's always reciprocal, and actually very often for things like, for example, the workforce work that NVRC is doing right now, the AI work that NVRC is doing right now, the fact that we say, okay, we will support that is also motivating others to do that, so we are kind of shaming them to do that sometimes, right?
Ms. Cunningham.
I'll just reiterate that this would, amongst other things, would require a larger tax rate than I'm willing to accept. So I would zero it out and have us figure it out when the initiative is articulated.
I will speculate that the $32,000 might not be the single largest item that leads to that dispositive choice, but I'll
Every dollar
respect
counts.
your truth,
They're
and you are
taxpayer
you certainly know your jam, so that's fine. Next, we will remove the yellow from this because I think there's a majority that is okay, copacetic with this, unless you feel that there's not such a majority. But next, couple of items. We had Mr. Spain, Mr. Karantonis, and I heard Vice Chair Coffey amenable with if you need to put some language that Matt will personally assure that no money goes if no other locality, please.
Could we add something to the effect of how we manage the contingency fund above, that you'll come
Nope,
back to the
that's
board?
different concept from what I just articulated, and the majority is in a different place.
Okay, then.
It's true.
Spend away. Go ahead.
Okay, next one is, so I guess I'd be interested, the opportunities grants is a big discussion. I guess I would say line 54 is, what I recall of that part of the discussion was that was dependent upon whether we had enough money, more or less. And so I think what I propose is that we go to line 54 and we have a quick check to assess whether one-time funding we are remotely within the realm of possible.
Again, this is assuming.
That's of course.
Can you clarify the tax rate, because we didn't start there?
I'm happy to. The proposed tax rate is 2 cents. Okay? So the next issue is moving down to the bottom. Are we at a one-time problem, seeking all colleagues' comments and thoughts about whether this is a good approach to go forward with respect to the 150? If we're not there, then maybe we go back to the opportunities grant. I'm just trying to find consensus or the will of the board as easily as possible. Don't see, yes, Ms. Cunningham.
I think we should discuss the opportunities grant. I think it's,
Okay, that's fine.
It's a s-
Colleagues, is that amenable to everybody? Or do you have a preference? I mean, okay, let's go to the opportunities grant. The process is fine. The opportunities grant, I'll describe what led to the $437,000 in proposal. Staff worked through a process. They had some recommendations, and they also, at the end of their presentation, they also described if there is additional funding, and that is for discussion, one-time funding, that there's a number of additional priorities that they see as strategically important. And those include, I believe, responding to food, immigration, and a couple of others. In an effort to stay in alignment with where staff was on a process going forward, I took those recommendations and I looked at them and I felt that they were appropriate. I felt that they were near enough in line with staff's work and also priorities that I shared and I thought the board shared, and that led to the recommendations. I think that if we want to, it's there. Any other approach, I am not personally opposed in the whole world to earmarks, but any other approach would be more earmark-like, which colleagues have expressed concerns on. So that is what led to the set of recommendations. I'm open the floor to everyone should they have additional thoughts. Vice Chair Coffey.
I don't want to start.
Okay, Ms. Cunningham or Mr. Carantonis. Mr. Carantonis, go ahead.
So this is the additional funding that would allow to include in our NOFA, in our opportunities NOFA, funding for certain programs and nonprofits that are right now responding on very fundamental needs. Just as a reminder, we started at 3 years ago, we started at a completely different level of funding for this NOFA. We reduced that last year, and we reduced it again this year. We took a risk there, understanding that we will be able to fund less. At the same time, a lot has happened last year, and the needs are still there. So, for example, the Arlington Education Employment Center would be funded here from this $437,000. Our Stomping Ground would be funded with $50,000. The Arlington Neighborhood Village, the refugee work and asylum work that with families that live in Arlington, so there's 108 families that ECDC does. There is a contingent for Arlington Free Clinic that's limited to $50,000 here because this is the cap on the. There is a Nova Salute contingent, also capped to $50,000. So all in all, I think that we are in a point where we are doing two things here. We are responding to very basic needs in the community, and at the same time, we finalize this NOFA that we have a little bit underfunded given the demand that was out there.
Thank you, Mr. Carantonis. Ms. Cunningham.
I would maybe offer to Chair Coffey if she'd prefer to go, because I think you have heard a lot from me.
Madam Vice Chair.
Yeah, I think there's just a bigger conversation to be had here. The purpose of introducing the opportunity grant process was to introduce a competitiveness, I think, really focused around additional initiatives that served a community-identified need. I think we have a lot of our nonprofit organizations who are relying upon that pool of money. I think, I've heard from our Community Development Citizens Advisory Commission on somewhat a lack of clarity sometimes between what they're doing with our CDBG dollars and what we're doing with the opportunities grant dollars, and there's some cross-pollination there. There's some groups who get contract dollars from us. There's some groups that get nothing from us. There's some groups that use this to pay for new kind of like pilot interesting idea programs. There's some people who are using it more or less for general operating support. And I think there's just a larger conversation to be had. We've needed to top this number up multiple times since the introduction of this process because of the demonstrated need and good purposes within our community. I think the hard part about this process is every single organization that applies and every program that gets put into that pool is worthy of being funded, but there are limited dollars, and there's just a bigger conversation to be had here. I don't have a specific proposal or approach that solves any of that for this fiscal year, but it is an immense amount of work of our community nonprofits and our staff to get us through this process every year and give us recommendations. And I think we need to evaluate what it is we're trying to accomplish through this grant process and decide where we want to go in the future.
Sure. I think there's been much discussion of diverse perspectives on this and trying to reach on the longer term question. So all fair concerns. Mr. Spain.
I'll just make it quick. Going back to the opportunities grant, this is in no way, shape, or form is enough money to support the nonprofits that we have. But if I'm correct in saying this, Mr. Manager, maybe you can get me right. In our whole this county's 2019 equity resolution, the rollout of race, the opportunities grant came around in large part to reduce inequities and create opportunities in our community, specifically for nonprofits in a lot of ways.
Yeah, we received guidance, and Michelle, you can help me here a little bit. We spent some time determining which organizations would go to the contract approach, for example, Path Forward and the approach there, and then other opportunities. It wasn't called an opportunities grant originally. It was called a race grant to try to address the diversity and equity needs of the community. And then it has morphed its name and the funding levels. I think Mr. Carantonis accurately reflected how those funding levels have come down over the last few years.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's just some background, and I'm supportive of where we are with this, understanding that we, no system process at this point, whether it's through NOFA, whether it's through opportunities grants, I'll be the first to tell you that many view it as skewed or it's not fair. And I don't think we're ever going to get beyond all that, colleagues, just to be quite frank with you. It's about, the nonprofits out there that need, at the end of the day, some kind of assistance along the way to involve themselves in the areas that we believe, quite honestly, are critically important to our community. So I'm supportive of it, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spain. Ms. Cunningham.
I just want to clarify, I think what the staff recommended when we had our 2x2s was a scenario that did not include these additional items, and that these additional items were identified as if the board were to find additional funds and wanted to fund additional things through the opportunities grant, this is the list they would propose. I think the process we laid out, the budget we laid out, was reasonable, and that the entire intent of the opportunities grant is to get the board's hands out of some of this. So it would be my preference that we honor the preliminary, the main staff recommendation, and that to the extent there are needs that are identified outside of that, that we budget for those needs. And so the one I have heard compellingly is healthcare. I believe you put $50,000 towards it in the humanitarian bucket. Healthcare is very tightly aligned with our DHS team. So I would say, rather than sort of messing with the process that's already been completed, we'd stick with the initial staff recommendation, and then we put some number of dollars to DHS to figure out where is the best place in this time of difficulty to place primary care or healthcare supports. And so I'd be happy to support that, but I'm not loving the lump together. I think we're spending money we don't mean to, and we're not being clear about what we want to go.
Sure, thank you. I'm not in support of that approach because I don't think that staff particularly wishes to be one way or the other pulled into this conversation. The language in that slide said if there is additional, so here are some additional recommendations if there is additional funding. To the question, I don't think, and I think we are putting $5 million in ongoing towards 2 public safety agencies and $437,000 that will help with one time. That is through a competitive process I'm still in support of. I don't know if that changes. Certainly want to give time and space to all colleagues should that change the conclusion. I think there's a majority for the 437, but 500, that's what I believe. Is there any concerns, Mr. Karantonis or Ms. Vice Chair Coffey or Mr. Spain? I'm not trying to have conflict. I just am where I am.
Yeah, and if it's helpful, there were 2 amendments that were proposed that would reflect what I would recommend, but only if it's helpful. I believe it was 150 for health care and 75 for workforce.
Which would mean consequences for entities that have received a number of outreach in the last few days, but it's to Mr. Karantonis and Mr. Spain and Vice Chair Coffey to see if you have additional thoughts as we seek to resolve this.
My only additional thought is that I agree with Vice Chair Coffey that we went through 3 iterations of a process that is not really working as intended. And so this is why we have a messier than we have ever anticipated or wanted process here. At this point, we are responding. I mean, every single appropriation here is responding to primary needs, and it's tried to do its best to help those who are responding, right? So it's not too much money. It's less than in several years before, less than 1.8 million, less than 2.5 million. So it's still we are on a declining scale here, and we will have to reassess and talk policy about that. I fully agree, and including the balance of those functions or those responsive appropriations that should be in the contractor areas and the procurement space versus something that is no fun.
Thank you, Mr. Karantonis. Mr. Spain.
I'll keep it quick. All of us, as members of the county boards, have received a myriad of requests in the past several weeks, even up to today, about, from nonprofits who are potentially seeking opportunities through, lanes perhaps like opportunities grants, without naming any in particular. We know there's a significant demand signal. And I feel that if we go back on this 437 right now, then some folks, of course, are going to miss out. And I think we do need to have a larger conversation, but I'm good for where we're at this budget cycle with 437.
Thank you, Mr. Spain. Vice Chair Coffey.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm closer to where Ms. Cunningham is than others. I think I had resigned myself to not having this conversation because of where I perceived most others to be. I do maintain that I'm not sure this is working for us or for our community members, frankly. And I think the fact that there are organizations that are so reliant on this discretionary grant funding that it is borderline existential is inherently a problem. Like, I don't think that was the purpose of this program. And so it concerns me. It's not something I'm willing to blow up at this stage of the game, but I do echo Ms. Cunningham's concerns around the approach and what we're doing.
Sure, I think it will be, thank you, respectfully. I think we have the majority will in this particular case. I do think that the 50K cap minus an additional application might help with some of the levels of reliance. We would have to do a further analysis. I acknowledge it will be an extensive and not easy process to reach some form of alignment going forward on this, but the Opportunities Grant, seeing as there's a majority with 437K, we will highlight that. Is there anything else, colleagues? We will go to our next item, which is, PAYGO, Increased Street Safety Initiative Funding for Vision Zero. Open the floor to colleagues. We could look down at the balance to see if there is one-time or ongoing funding that will reach there. Currently, we have plenty of ongoing funding that could help cover it. We do not have
Perhaps
sufficient.
because you're, sorry.
Yeah, we do not have sufficient one-time funding, but that's where we are based on trying to work through all of the different pieces. Would anyone like to start the discussion on Vision Zero or have suggestions on how else we could move forward? I personally, this is not a hill I want to die on. I do think the Vision Zero is a solid program. I do think we have funding, and we still have to resolve the environmental management specialist position, and we have the sheriff, and there's AHIF, but that's a sort of a last piece. Colleagues, is there any, I guess what I would say, and I'd be interested in folks, I think that this 150,000 is going to be reachable for us financially, whether or not we choose option B2 or option C, because the ongoing funding is currently sufficiently funded. So I would suggest that we support this, but we will need a majority of the board in order to move forward one way or the other at this stage on this item. So leave the floor open to folks as they wish. Keeping in mind, we got about 20 minutes before we got to finish up.
This is on the PAYGO still?
Yes, on the PAYGO and the 150.
Yeah, this is one of my additions. I think 150 is going to fund between probably 2 to 4-ish additional tactical investments in our community. I think that's worth doing. And we'll hopefully be able to continue investments in the future. So.
Sure. We've got two. Is there Mr. Carantonis or Mr. Spain? And we'll of course hear Ms. Cunningham's thoughts with respect to this one. Okay, Mr. Carantonis.
Mr. Chair, I'm friendly to that because Vision Zero is a great program. I understand a little bit that we are a little bit over budget here. How do you propose to cover the gap?
I propose essentially to use ongoing funding
Right. So
use some ongoing funding to cover this remaining gap that exists.
I think we can. I mean, I'm supportive of this. We want to see the bigger item of the actual compensation and the position.
Ms. Cunningham, on this, we do have, I believe, a majority that is supportive of this.
Yep, I'll just reiterate, I'd be supportive of it, but I would pair it with revenue that would be restricted to doing that, so.
Got it. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate that. In addition, not seeing Mr. Spain's light, we will remove the yellow from this, and this will be part of the mark. We are at two different items. I would propose we go to line 32 and the environmental management position and a discussion there. And we will then turn to options B versus B2, I believe, on the sheriff's compensation. So, colleagues, on this item, do folks have thoughts? Mr. Carantonis.
So this, line 32, the environmental management specialist, this is a half-year position,
That's correct.
right? Which means that it will be full next year.
That's correct.
As I said before, for me, we want to be very, very, very transparent also with our advocacy community and everybody who cares a lot about. This is a year that we will be launching a climate action plan. I think this is a critical component of policy delivery that we'll be doing this year. So I have no doubt that we need to add capacity there, et cetera. If you ask me if my priority was a planner, because I think that right now this is extremely important down in 22202.
Sure.
If we froze that position, which is a liability for next budget.
We did.
So I'm okay with going ahead with this here as it is proposed.
Sure. Mr. Spain.
Being mindful of time, we've talked ad nauseum, Chair, about this position, and just for the public, I'm fully supportive. I understand, the recommendation from the county manager. However, I just think from where we're going with some of our initiatives and our climate resiliency from the advocates that have come to us, I think moving away from this position is just the timing of it, and the expectations are just, I'm not aligned there. So the half year coming on the backside, I'm fine with it. So, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
I'm fine, okay?
Great, thank you, Mr. Spain. I'm supportive as well. It just occurred to me in an effort to, because I know that it's a shared priority of all five of us, and yet we live in a constrained world. So what I'd suggest, if it's possible, we leave the item in there. We include guidance that requires the manager to come back to the board, and if there is not a majority of the board in support of posting the position at the time of that, then we would then say no to the position. Is that copacetic? Is there a reason why we can't have guidance that requires, because we haven't had the federal funds hit that we thought, but we have had a bad economy the last 3 months locally. So it could be precatory guidance, but it is what I propose in an effort to trying to find the greatest majority. First, who do I look to see if that is okay language to put in guidance? I'm not seeing grand objections, and so I'm going to try to ask Mr. Weinshank to include in guidance in the notes that says.
Sure.
Yeah. Yes.
I just want to, this will be new to me, maybe to the board. The board is now, from what I'm hearing, is at a point where we are going to kind of lean in and state and tell staff, basically the county manager, when to fill and open a billet.
That's fair.
Is this a new precedence?
It's a new precedent in my effort to find agreement. I've just been clarified.
I want to guard myself against, there is a kind of two distinct roles here, right? And I get it. As it is right now, that's what I would like to see happen. I'll leave it at that.
Great. Vice Chair Coffey.
Yeah, I mean, I think the manager will be cognizant enough that if we find ourselves in another year like this year, and there's a position that's a half year and has not been filled, that he would come to us not to fill it. I'm not sure that it really necessitates direction or establishing some form of direct board approval. Sure. I think we can name and make him aware now that this is one that we would be willing to hold open if we find ourselves in that position. But I don't.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Ms. Cunningham, did you want to comment, or is covered? So we will remove the yellow from this position. Will be in for a half year. We will not put any guidance in my effort to be accommodating. I think, Mr. Spain, you have persuasive, as well as Vice Chair Coffey, you have persuasive arguments. We will now proceed to the compensation question on the sheriffs, which is a question of whether B or B2 is operable, and I believe the decision is to you, Mr. Carantonis.
Oh, I'm sorry. This was vestigial. I was thinking about this. As I said, I support option B, but I want to see the numbers first. I mean, if Mr. Weincheck. So what is the bottom line right now?
So I think that this doesn't change the one-time funding, but it would change by 150 or some amount, the amount in ongoing funding that we would have available. That's my guess. And I should be reminded that I think it's worth being reminded, colleagues who support option C, if there is a majority on option C, we do option C. It's just that my perception was that we had 2 of us on B2 and 2 of us on C, but 2 of us who would be B before B2. So that's why I was sort of articulating that choice. What is in this with the 509,000 in ongoing leftover is option B2. That number would go up to the difference, the delta between 17552 and 1455, that delta would be an increase in the
It's about
ongoing.
$300,000 that,
Yeah, so it'd be an increase in our ongoing that was available by that delta.
Unless you adjusted the tax rate.
I've never
because you
heard that
didn't
before.
need
Thank
it.
you, Ms. Cunningham, for sharing that. Unless you decided not to fund certain services as well.
It's just math, Chair. Like having leftovers is not a problem because you only have leftovers because you've assumed that you're maxing out the tax increase.
And so
Absolutely,
Just sharing the mathematics.
We're
I guess
coming back
A
to the other items.
question for DMF on tax rate. Are we able, is it only quarter-cent adjustments that we can do?
Look, I could have proposed 1.4 cents, 1.6, 1.7, 1.8, or 1.9, or 1.75. It adjusts. Danielle is working right now. If you wanted to know what a tenth of a cent, because I think that's, I'm saying that seems to be the question.
Absolutely, it seems to me, irrespective of perspective, that this is a question of interest to the board as a whole.
And we'll just all watch Danielle work.
Which will add no pressure.
No pressure whatsoever.
She's smart enough to remove herself. I mean, I think where to me, there's kind of three things that hang a little bit in the balance at this point in the discussion, which is, how high on additional compensation for the sheriff, what, if anything, goes to AHIF, and where does that leave us on the tax rate? I think I would be amenable to looking at smaller changes depending on, I think if we went lower on the sheriff compensation, I think we could probably look at potentially a slightly lower tax rate and still have something to put into AHIF, and I would be amenable to that.
That's great. So I think, no colleague disagrees with that, correct? We're all aligned with that?
No one disagrees. I just have a question for the county manager, or actually for DMF. What is the good rule of thumb from a budgetary aspect? What should our cushion be? Should it be $130,000? Should it be $750,000? Should it be a certain percentage? Can you tell us that?
I'm just going to say, this is when you do this, my strong recommendation is you end up with zero on your bottom line. We have built-in contingencies in other places in the budget.
So
Take it to zero, you say. All right.
So we have flexibility. I assume we all would like to pull down the tax rate. If we can do it by 1/10 or 2/10, we'd like to do that. I have put forward the mark. I don't know that I'm in the majority with respect to what I believe is appropriate to invest or is worth investing beyond the investment we're already making towards the sheriff, and we'll resolve that. We also have the tax rate. We also have AHIF. Ms. Cunningham, we also had some of the items that were prior highlighted, and so I would propose while Ms. Bush is finishing, that we pull up, Mr. Weinshank, that we pull those up and we will be able to knock out some of them, but I also wonder, leave it to your will as to whether, if there's one or two things and we're a little short on time, want to go through all of them to be fair on process. But Mr. Weinshank, if you could bring up Ms. Cunningham's piece as to the highlighted items that were in her spreadsheet, we can use the time before Ms. Bush returns. And Mr. Karantonis, if you get to, I think what you said, I think you're having a choice that is honestly leading to B as opposed to B2, but
my preference for B. I
B.
see that it fits right now. I mean, B2 is feasible here.
Yeah.
But we had some items from Ms. Cunningham's list.
So you want B? Okay. That's,
Still, yeah.
sure, got it. Clarity. We're going to be at B. That ain't what I was preferring, but that's okay. And there's still significant investment, whether it was B2, B1, or C. There's a significant investment. And we'll now turn, while we wait on what is possible, to Ms. Cunningham's list of of the highlighted items in Ms. Cunningham's piece. I would say, let's take item, first, let's take item, the sheriff's item, and go to B as opposed to B2. Yeah.
So what is the residual right now?
All right, so maybe we can use this time. Let's slow it down a little bit, please, Mr. Weinshank. We're super tight on time, but I suppose we can miss. I was chairing this, but that's all of the. All right, so a question is for DMF. Is there a score on line 20 that you have worked through?
So the expense reduction was 479,032, but there was also one-time money, one-time revenue of 300,000 from selling the apparatus. So if you were to restore that cut, you would need to fund the 479,032, but you would also lose 300,000 in one-time funding.
Colleagues, is there,
The delta is 100 and.
it's 700,000 delta total. Is there perspectives that folks have? I'll open the floor. Mr. Carantonis, or is that vestigial?
No, it's vestigial. At this point, I'm not in support.
Miss, you're not, at this point, not supportive. Ms. Cunningham?
Can we just clarify, Ms. Hughes, you would put a negative 300 and something in column B to
That's correct.
to indicate that you'd have a negative income? Is that right? So the total cost would be
Table.
almost 800,
Total cost, yes, would be,
about 800,000?
Yep.
Okay.
Ms. Vice Chair Coffey?
Yeah, from a just pure numbers perspective, that is very hard for me to see how that will fit.
I'm a second. I think Mr. Carantonis is the third, but I'm not Mr. Smith.
No,
You're lying.
not, it's just not feasible.
All right, 20, we're removing the highlight. The next one, Langston Boulevard Alliance, this is one that I've seen in writing, but I haven't had conversation on, and I'd be grateful for illumination as to where where the context for this is, and I'm open to it. You did mention that, that the Columbia Pike had some additional funding. I don't recall, this was one of the LBA's asks, correct?
They didn't ask this year because they've asked previous years, and they found it unlikely to be granted.
Sure, got it. Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, as a designated liaison, it was not an official ask by way of LBA. However, to Ms. Cunningham's point, there's a number of factors. This is more being proactive than reactive, given what's going on along Langston Boulevard. And if we had additional funding, knowing that the demand signal itself from LBA is great, and then significantly increasing this one-time increase would be critically would help them along the way for what they're doing. Yeah. So there was no official ask, just so you know.
So
But we've
my
had conversations.
My concern is that we have had a policy of trying to have alignment between Clarendon Alliance and, at least I have interpreted a policy of having an alliance between the Clarendon Alliance and the Langston Boulevard Alliance, the Clarendon, and so I struggled I worked very hard to get LBA up to the 200 or 205, I forget which of the two, and ongoing, and I think that's appropriate, but I'm not at least for me, I'm open to next year. I just don't know how this doesn't reach the must-have in this year for me, but I'm not trying to be a pain. What do we say to the Clarendon partnership vis-a-vis this?
Point well made, Mr. Chair. We're good.
I'm not trying to-
We're on a time hack.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Colleagues, yes, Vice Chair Coffey. Or do you have thoughts on this, or was that vestigial?
It seems like we've maybe passed that
Well, I didn't hear from everybody, and I don't know that we have a majority. I think that Mr. Spain and I are amenable, and I don't know where you, Ms. Cunningham, and Mr. Karantonis are on this in light of the Clarendon point.
So I have some insight on the work that the Langston Boulevard Alliance is doing. I hear you, Mr. Chair, on this. I am friendly to this.
You're inclined to also pass on this?
No, I'm
wanna
inclined
do
to
it?
actually approve that.
Okay, you want to do it even if
Because
there
there
is an
is
imbalance?
significant work, and look at the projects that we've been getting from Langston Boulevard as of recently. There's a lot of work there, and I mean, we are struggling with that. And I just want to, the signal to LBA is, I really want to tie that to some real policy and implementation work, because we need some feedback from them there.
Persuasive to me. Colleagues, are we okay with $50,000 for the Langston Boulevard Alliance for implementation? Vice Chair Coffey?
I think there is some interaction for me in terms of the potential, like, tenth of a tax rate, where
Sure.
that leaves us. It's
Okay, so we're ready with the numbers.
Let's
if
do
you want.
that.
thought you might be.
Go ahead.
Hiding from us.
Yeah, Graham, if you can go to the other spreadsheet with the bottom line.
Ms. Cunningham, are you good with what the chair, Langston Boulevard?
What she may be,
Followed.
on Langston Boulevard.
Yeah. 50K is
Takis
what I
and I were
heard.
sort of persuaded, and Maureen mentioned that it depends on the bottom line for her on the 50,000.
Sure.
I don't think the 50,000 is a make or break us, but we'll see from Ms. Bush. So why don't we go to Ms. Bush and then come back? You put it in your list, so I would imagine you'd be supportive. So we have
Absolutely.
1, 2, 3, 3.5 or 4. Langston Boulevard Alliance, 50K goes in. One time, correct? Yep. Thank you to you for bringing it forward. Maybe it's 50, not 5. There we go. And then now we're down to the bottom line. Sorry, Ms. Bush, you have magically 1 cent, 0.01, 1/10 of 1%. What's the-
Sure. So 1/10 of 1% for the county is about 247,902 one time, and then ongoing is 498,674.
So let's put those two numbers into the spreadsheet, because I think it adds up, and we will have
So what number do you want? 0.04?
0.01. We can't afford 0.02 to my, I don't think.
Go back
Going
to
down to 0.04.
What happens is you get close to balance if you switch out one time with ongoing.
That's right.
And then we need 68, but then there's no AHIF at that point. Okay. Yeah, I think my have it all mindset only worked if we went to sheriff compensation option C, which is even would yield more ongoing than what we have in here currently.
So we would be 68,000 net down. There's a policy choice as to whether we want to look for any savings on any of the other pieces. Is that correct? So 308,000 we would, of ongoing, we would use to cover one time, and then we would be $68,000 short. I'm not sure that any budget has been this precise, but I'm open. Mr. Schwartz.
Yeah, so what you're short of is one-time money, and so when we do this, when we prepare budgets, we always go to we have an $8.4 million number, we take out 68,000 from it, and we call it a day. So I'm just saying, I don't want you to worry about that. It shouldn't be a policy debate.
Colleagues, I would ask, is this amenable to folks? I hear the desire for option C again, and I don't know, Mr. Karantonis, it would be option B. So this is, go ahead, Vice Chair Coffey.
So I think to me, we now find ourselves in a question between having funds for AHIF and having 1/10 of a cent lower tax rate. And so I think that's the policy question that I would ask to this board. we know that it is only getting more expensive to build affordable housing. We know that this is a community and a broader priority. I talked to one of our housing advocates yesterday who said they didn't ask because they had given up. And I don't want that to be the signal we give to our community on affordable housing. I think it is important that we have something that goes into this. And, you know, I think there are a range of necessary and nice additions to this budget at this point that we have added back in or added all together. And to me, it is my value to fund and actively invest in affordable housing. And I think if I am choosing between the 10th and having money for AHIF, I would like to make sure we are putting something into AHIF.
So you would choose the AHIF over the .01?
And you mean something additional to what's in the ongoing?
Yes, because we know that what is in the ongoing is barely maintaining the pipeline that we do have, and especially with the increases in construction costs and what we've seen with, you know, like I think the Crystal House project is a good example where we funded them at one level. By the time they reached construction, we had to go back and find additional money from, you know, other Crystal House, you know, it's moving things around, but we just know that all of our future projects in that pipeline, I think those numbers are probably under what the reality of them is going to be. And so I think any topping up that we can do is valuable, even if it's not a wild, beautiful investment of $40 million a year that our advocates would like to see.
Thank you, Vice Chair Coffey. To Mr. Carantonis.
So what Vice Chair Coffey proposes, which I support, is also the tradition of how AHIF has been built on ongoing, very slowly. And that's fine. I mean, I would definitely wish a lot more here, but this is a good place to put this money.
Thank you, Mr.
This is not a
Carantonis.
lot. I mean,
There are now 2 for that proposal. Colleagues, further comments? Mr. Spain.
Got a question. Just so I can be clear, this 308, are we talking about this amount going into so where's our AHIF funding, our
Mr.
AHIF contribution coming from?
It would come from if we, Mr. Weinshank moved the tax rate down 1/10
Yeah, I wanna see- yeah,
of a
yeah.
cent. And so if he moves it back up
there you go.
1/10 of a
There we
cent
go.
and goes back to the other page, it will yield.
Here we go. That's what I want to see, and I think everyone else wants to see because we're talking. Okay. And this puts our tax rate at, again, for the record?
2 cents.
2 cents? Your full 2 cents, okay.
You're aligned?
Yeah.
You're supportive?
Yes, I am.
Got it. Thank you. Ms. Cunningham?
Can I see what of the other list, all we added back is the Langston Boulevard, no invasives? So there were 6 items there. Did we get the bathrooms?
C would be allocated personnel line and like all of our lines.
I think I would, at this point, add the historic fee. I think we can spare
$500.
the 500. It's going to be tight.
And the
but-
restrooms, it would,
I'm good with the historic fee for my part, and the restrooms, I'm not there on invasives. But, because
so we
I
go
think,
halvesies on invasives, so we're only cutting it a third instead of 2/3?
So,
no, I'm focused on AHIF, that's where I am, but I'm trying. And if
Mr.
colleagues are there, that's fine.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
so,
Sorry, after you.
now your staff, you have something you need to?
Ms. Hughes.
Okay, go ahead.
So on the restrooms, the numbers should actually be $27,022 instead of 21. And then on the invasives, I'm not sure I was following exactly what what you guys were talking about before with the level of funding, but just wanted to point out that the level of funding in the 27 proposed budget is the same as it was in the 26 adopted. There was a 100,000 of one time in 26. That was replaced with 100,000 of one time in 27. You may have completely understood that, but I got a little lost in the conversation, so wanted to make sure that was clear.
Can you clarify that again? Because I thought we had topped it up to 300 both years to ensure that we were keeping the, and I think we've received multiple letters to that effect, so maybe there's a miscommunication.
I think there was 325, but not
Yeah,
in 26.
so.
And then in 27, we retained the same amount, 109, give or take, in ongoing, and 100K in one time. Those are
Okay.
just the
Yeah,
facts, but there
and
was
so
not
there's-
326, it was in 25.
Got it.
So can we, fair, of course, important, so let's, bathrooms, $27,000.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it was in your mark. That's in there. It is ongoing, as I understand it. Okay. Next is any other discussion, the application fee. In the interest of time, fine with it, not a lot of money. Everybody good?
Yep.
Great. Great. Lastly is this AHIF and this, we had this different discussion, so on AHIF and then the invasive. Those seem the last two issues that I can tell that are on the table. And we have the amount of AHIF that would be involved is 677.
not yet.
Not yet, slightly less. Were we able to have a conversation? Are folks, there is the invasives
About
point,
600,000 will go
650.
to.
but there is the invasives point, and want to give fulsome piece to that. There's also AHIF. Are there thoughts, Vice Chair Coffey, or Mr. Spain, or Ms. Cunningham, or Ms. Carantonis? For me, I believe that invasives is an ongoing priority. I think the fact that it was 100,000 in the past years, I'm mindful this is a very difficult and important issue. AHIF is a priority, and so that's where I would invest the remaining money. And I would pass with due and full respect to colleagues and everyone on the question of the 1/10 of 1%.
I guess I just have a slight
Sure.
slight confusion still. The proposed budget, if we did nothing on invasives, maintains the same funding as the prior fiscal year?
Current fiscal year,
As the current-
26.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, as the
Number.
previously adopted
326.
budget. Okay, so and to say that a different way, there has been no cut to the previously budgeted invasives funding.
That is correct.
There was a temporary cut this year, right?
25, there was a higher level.
Right.
26, the board reduced that level.
And if I remember correctly, in 25, the justification was to give it a thorough push and then to be more in expanded maintenance mode, which I find it's sufficient. I didn't remember that we maintained the funding this year.
If I can make one recommendation, because I know we need to get to zero, but I'm not allowed to, but if you move the Vision Zero money from one time to ongoing and actually designate it as pay-go, but direct it to Vision Zero this year, that's going to make it easier for you at the end of the day
Right.
to get to zero. Just a thought.
You think we want this to be easier?
It's almost like you've done this before.
Everybody agree with Mr. Schwartz on that? Any concerns? The 150?
Well, let's see the numbers roll out, right?
Yeah, 150,000, Mr. Weinschenk, if you can move it from one time to ongoing for Vision Zero. So the question now remains on the AHIF, the 0.01%, and the invasives. And I think we have a consensus on AHIF, but I am not trying to preclude compromise. Mr. Spain?
No, I would just think we've heard to the extent, not only from our colleagues here on the board, but we've heard from the community about how, continue to contribute to AHIF, even in this moment, is not only expectation, but given the current state of affairs we're in, that is important. So I think in this small step, even given the significant cost increases that we're seeing, I'm fine with that, and I don't think our community will look at us any differently with this amount of money. So I'm fine with it. Should it be more? Yes, but I think there's also, to Mr. Carantona's point, we really need to figure out a way to increase money, and not just ongoing, but AHIF has been dwindling down over the years, the contributions to that fund, and we know that. This is not sustainable, and we got to figure out something else to do. So I'm supportive.
Thank you.
Excuse me from running my mouth here a little bit.
No, all good. I think that we have consensus.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying unanimity. I think that there is, the support is for AHIF funding for the remaining funds that are on the page there. Is that correct? Is there anyone else who would like to add anything? With that, colleagues, we have a markup. We have a budget working. We will have process over the weekend. Are there any other items to come before the board, or any DMF, pull the brakes, or what do we need to do to be ready to wrap up?
Well, actually, traditionally, you vote on the mark today so that we can prepare the board reports and say that this is what the board wants to act on. That doesn't foreclose you from having further thoughts, but we discourage it.
Colleagues, keeping in mind, I did not have all process. I did not know I had the effective process that we would finish the mark today. I said earlier that I did not know that there would be a specific motion. Is there objection to holding a specific motion so that we can say move forward on this markup?
No objection on my part.
I move that the markup, as reflected from our conversations and the ultimate results that are here, is our markup that we asked DMF to finalize, bless with holy water or whatever, and score. Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, I think that was staff trying to second. That's a good try. Mr. Weinshank was trying to second. Seconded by Mr. Spain. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
All those opposed?
No.
The motion passes 4-1. We now move to finalizing over the coming days. DMF, everybody, and I want to make sure, I think I can adjourn us today. Are there any concerns? Colleagues, with that, we are adjourned.
With gratitude to everybody who has been working and continues
Huge
to work.
gratitude. Yes. Thank you all.